Ryan Mercer never imagined that hiding a bleeding billionaire in his daughter's bedroom closet would cost him everything he had left. But when Evelyn Sinclair crawled through his front door that storm-torn night with assassins 30 seconds behind her, he made a choice that would turn his quiet poverty into a war zone. Within 72 hours, his garage would burn. His name would become a lie plastered across every news channel. And his 7-year-old daughter would ask him a question no father should ever have to answer. "Daddy, why do those men want to kill the nice lady?" If you want to see how far a man will go to protect someone he barely knows, stick with me until the end. And hey, drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The wrench slipped. Ryan Mercer swore under his breath as his knuckles scraped against the undercarriage of the Chevy Silverado suspended above him. Blood welled up across his right hand, mixing with the engine grease already caked into the lines of his palm. He didn't bother wiping it off. Blood and grease had become the color scheme of his life. "Daddy?" The small voice cut through the mechanical hum of the garage's failing overhead lights. Ryan rolled out from under the truck on his creeper board, squinting against the fluorescent glare. Chloe stood in the doorway between the garage and their house, clutching her stuffed rabbit against her frozen pajamas. Her dark hair stuck up in about 15 different directions. "What are you doing up, kiddo?" Ryan sat up slowly, his back protesting the movement. 32 years old, and he already felt 50. It's past midnight. "I heard thunder." Chloe's bottom lip trembled slightly. "The loud kind." Ryan's chest tightened the way it always did when she got scared. Ever since her mother walked out 3 years ago, just disappeared one Tuesday morning while Chloe was at preschool, didn't even leave a note. His daughter had developed a collection of fears that broke his heart. Thunderstorms, raised voices, the sound of car doors slamming unexpectedly. The list kept growing, and Ryan kept failing to fix any of it. "Come here." He opened his arms despite the grease. Chloe ran to him, and he scooped her up, ignoring the way his lower back screamed. She buried her face against his shoulder. "It's just noise. Baby, can't hurt you. Promise?" "Promise." Ryan carried her toward the house, leaving the Silverado half-finished. The owner wouldn't pick it up until Thursday anyway, and right now his daughter mattered more than the $70 he'd make on the repair. "Let's get you back to bed." Their house was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen that barely fit a table. The carpet was stained in places Ryan had given up trying to clean. The walls needed paint. The heater rattled like it was preparing for a dramatic death. But it was theirs, sort of. The landlord owned it, but Ryan paid rent on time every month, even when that meant eating rice and canned beans for 2 weeks straight. He tucked Chloe back into her bed, pulling the comforter up to her chin. Her room was the only space in the house that didn't look like poverty had moved in permanently. Ryan had made sure of that. He'd painted the walls lavender himself, built the bookshelf in the corner from scrap wood. The stuffed animals crowding her bed had all come from yard sales and thrift stores, but Chloe didn't know that. To her, each one was treasure. "Sing the song?" she asked, her eyes already half closed. Ryan's singing voice belonged somewhere between a dying cat and a garbage disposal, but he sang anyway. Some off-key rendition of "You Are My Sunshine" that his own mother used to sing before the cancer took her. His voice cracked on the chorus. It always did. By the second verse, Chloe was asleep. Ryan stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. 7 years old, 1st grade, already developing the kind of resilience that came from too much instability too early. She never complained when they had cereal for dinner again. Never asked why other kids got new clothes while hers came from the Goodwill bins. Never questioned why Daddy looked so tired all the time. She deserved better than this. Ryan closed her door quietly and walked back to the garage, rolling his shoulders against the familiar ache. The storm Chloe had heard was getting worse. Rain hammered against the metal roof now, and wind howled through the gaps in the garage door seal. Thunder rolled across the valley in long, aggressive waves. He slid back under the Silverado and reached for the oil pan bolt, his headlamp cutting a narrow beam through the darkness. 2 more hours of work, maybe 3, and he could call it a night. Tomorrow he had the morning shift at Patterson's Auto, his actual job, the one with a semi-regular paycheck and health insurance that covered almost nothing. This garage work was side money. Survival money. The difference between keeping the lights on and sitting in the dark. The wrench turned, oil drained. Ryan's mind drifted the way it always did during the mechanical work, half on the task, half somewhere else entirely. Thinking about Chloe's school supply list he couldn't afford yet. Thinking about the property tax notice that had shown up yesterday. Thinking about how he'd somehow become the kind of man whose biggest accomplishment was making it through another week without everything falling apart. His wife, ex-wife technically, though the divorce papers had cost more than he could spare so they'd never actually filed them, used to say he had no ambition, that he was content being small. Maybe she'd been right. Maybe this was all he'd ever be. A guy in a shitty garage fixing other people's trucks, while his own life stayed permanently broken. The thunder cracked so loud the tools on the workbench rattled. Then came a sound that didn't belong to the storm. Metal screeching, tires losing grip. The compressed violence of a car crash happening too close. Ryan rolled out from under the truck, his pulse spiking. He grabbed a flashlight from the workbench and moved to the garage door, hitting the button to raise it. The door climbed slowly, revealing sheets of rain and darkness beyond. His property sat on the edge of town where the industrial zone bled into nothing. Abandoned lots, dead factories, roads that barely saw traffic anymore. The nearest neighbor was half a mile away. At this hour, on this road, there shouldn't be anyone. But someone was out there. Ryan stepped into the rain, immediately soaked. His flashlight beam cut through the downpour, sweeping across the road. About 50 yards down he caught it, fresh skid marks carved into the asphalt, leading straight off the shoulder into the drainage ditch that ran parallel to his property. And there, nose first into the muddy embankment, was a black SUV. Luxury model. Mercedes, maybe. The kind of vehicle that cost more than Ryan would make in 5 years. Jesus, he muttered, already moving toward it. The SUV's engine was still running, headlights pointing down into the mud at a sick angle. The driver's side airbag had deployed. Rain pounded against the hood, steam rising where hot metal met cold water. Ryan reached the vehicle and pulled on the driver's door. Locked. He knocked on the window, shining his light inside. That's when he saw her. A woman, mid-30s maybe, slumped against the deployed airbag. Dark hair plastered to her face, blood on her temple. She wore what looked like an expensive business suit, now torn and dirty. Her hands were shaking, not unconscious, conscious and terrified. Ryan knocked harder. "Hey, you okay?" The woman's head jerked up. Her eyes, sharp, green, wild with panic, locked onto his. For a second, she just stared at him like she couldn't process what she was seeing. Then she lunged for the door lock, fumbling with it before finally getting it open. The door swung outward and she practically fell into Ryan's arms, gasping, clutching at his shirt with a grip that was all adrenaline and fear. "Please," she choked out, rain streaming down her face, mixing with what might have been tears. "Please don't call the police." Ryan steadied her, confused. "You just crashed your car into a ditch. You're bleeding. I need to—" "No!" She grabbed his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her. Her pupils were dilated, her breathing ragged. "Do not call anyone. Do you understand me? If you call the police, they'll find me. And if they find me, I'm dead." Before Ryan could respond, headlights appeared on the road behind them. 2 sets, moving fast. The woman's entire body went rigid. She looked back at the approaching vehicles, then at Ryan, and something in her expression made his stomach drop. It was the look of someone who'd already accepted the worst possible outcome. "They're here," she whispered. "Oh God, they're here." The headlights were getting closer. Ryan could hear the engines now, heavy and aggressive, the kind of sound that preceded violence. Every instinct told him to step back, to let this woman deal with whatever mess she'd driven into his life. He didn't know her, didn't owe her, had enough problems without adopting someone else's. But she was looking at him like he was the last solid thing in a world that had turned to quicksand. And somewhere in his chest, in the part of him that still remembered who he used to be before life ground him down to survival mode, something shifted. "Come on." Ryan grabbed her hand and pulled her toward his property. "Move." They ran. The woman stumbled in her heels, nearly went down twice, but Ryan kept her upright. Behind them, the vehicles slowed as they reached the crashed SUV. Doors opened. Voices cut through the rain, male, commanding, organized. Ryan dragged the woman into his garage and hit the button to close the door. It descended with agonizing slowness while he pulled her deeper into the space, past the Silverado, past his workbench, toward the side door that led into the house. The garage door sealed shut just as flashlight beams swept across it from outside. "Inside!" Ryan hissed. "Now! Oh!" They stumbled into the house. Ryan locked the door behind them, his hand shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was catching up. The woman collapsed against the wall in his kitchen, breathing hard, leaving muddy water all over the linoleum. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ryan moved to the window that looked out toward the road, staying back from the glass. Through the rain, he could see them, 3 men, maybe 4, moving around the crashed SUV with flashlights and something that looked a lot like guns. One of them was talking on a phone, another was examining the ground, tracking where the woman had gone. "Who the hell are you?" Ryan asked without turning around. The woman didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice had changed. Less panic, more exhausted resignation. "My name is Evelyn Sinclair." Ryan turned to look at her. Even soaked and bleeding, even terrified, there was something about her that radiated a kind of power he'd never encountered before. The way she held herself, the way her eyes assessed the room even while her body trembled. "That's supposed to mean something to me?" A bitter smile crossed her face. "Sinclair Global Holdings, $17 billion in assets, 6,000 employees across 14 countries. I own half the commercial real estate in this state." She wiped blood from her temple, looked at it on her fingers. "Or I did anyway, before my own board of directors decided I'd be worth more dead than alive." Ryan stared at her. "You're telling me you're a billionaire." "See, was," Evelyn corrected. "Right now I'm just a woman bleeding in your kitchen while armed men decide whether to search this property or move on." As if on cue, a flashlight beam swept across the kitchen window. Ryan's heart slammed against his ribs. He grabbed Evelyn's arm and pulled her down below the window line, both of them crouching on his dirty kitchen floor. The flashlight beam moved across the glass, paused, moved on. Silence, except for the rain and their breathing. "You need to leave," Ryan whispered. "I've got a daughter sleeping down the hall. I can't have men with guns near my house. I can't." "I know." Evelyn's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. "I know what I'm asking, and I wouldn't ask if I had anywhere else to go. But they've frozen my accounts, turned my security team against me. Every person I thought I could trust either wants me dead or is too scared to help." She looked at him, really looked at him, and Ryan saw something in her eyes that made his chest ache. "You're the first person in 3 days who didn't try to kill me." Footsteps crunched on gravel outside. Ryan's mind raced. This was insane. This was beyond insane. He should open the door right now, tell those men exactly where she was, get her out of his life before everything imploded. But then he thought about Chloe, about the way her mother had abandoned her without warning, without explanation, about how 7-year-olds shouldn't have to learn that people were disposable, that loyalty was conditional, that the world was just a series of people deciding you weren't worth the inconvenience. "Chloe's room," he said quietly. "End of the hall, closet. Get in there and don't make a sound." Evelyn blinked. "What?" "Move. Now." She moved. Ryan stood slowly, his pulse hammering in his ears. Through the window he could see one of the men approaching the house. Big guy, maybe 6'3", wearing a dark jacket that didn't quite hide the shoulder holster underneath. Ryan walked to the front door before the man could knock, opening it like he'd been expecting company. Rain blew into the entryway. The man on his porch had the kind of face that had seen violence and enjoyed it. "Help you?" Ryan asked, keeping his voice level. The man's eyes swept over him, taking in the grease-stained clothes, the exhausted face, the small house behind him, calculating whether Ryan was a threat or just another nobody. "Sorry to bother you this late," the man said, his tone almost friendly. Almost. "We're looking for someone." Woman, mid-30s, dark hair, was driving that Mercedes in the ditch down there. She might be injured, might be confused. "You seen anyone like that?" Ryan scratched his jaw, playing it slow. "Heard the crash. Was about to come check it out when you guys showed up." He nodded toward the SUV. "She's still in there?" "Car's empty." The man's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're sure you haven't seen her? Maybe she came to your door, asked to use a phone?" "Just me and my kid here," Ryan said. "And she's been asleep for an hour." Nobody's knocked. The man studied him for a long moment. Rain dripped from the porch overhang between them. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. Mind if we take a look around? The man finally asked. Just to be thorough. Ryan's jaw tightened. Actually, yeah, I do mind. My daughter's sleeping, and I don't know you. You got a badge or something? The man's smile went cold. We're private security. The woman we're looking for is dangerous, unstable. We're authorized to use any means necessary to locate her. Then I guess you're authorized to come back with a warrant. Ryan started to close the door. Have a good night. Oh. Boss. The man's hand shot out, stopping the door. His friendly mask dropped completely. Listen carefully. That woman is a threat. To herself and to anyone who helps her. If we find out you're lying, if we find out you're hiding her, you're going to regret it. Understand? Ryan met his eyes, refusing to look away. I understand that it's 1 a.m. I'm tired as hell, and you're trespassing. So unless you want me to make some calls of my own, I'd suggest you get off my property. For a second, he thought the man might actually try something. His hand moved toward his jacket. Then a voice called out from the road. Carter, we got tracks heading east through the field. She's on foot. The man, Carter, held Ryan's gaze for another beat, then stepped back. We'll be in touch, he said quietly. Count on it. He turned and walked back toward the vehicles. Ryan watched until they climbed into their SUVs, drove off, headlights disappearing into the rain-soaked darkness. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. He closed the door and locked it, then leaned against it for a moment, his legs suddenly unsteady. What the hell had he just done? He just lied to armed men. Men who clearly had resources, organization, and absolutely no problem with murder. Men who knew where he lived. Daddy? Ryan's heart stopped. He turned to find Chloe standing in the hallway, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed rabbit dragging on the floor behind her. Who were you talking to? Buets. Nobody, baby. Just some guys lost on the road. Ryan crossed to her, forcing a smile. What are you doing up again? There's a lady in my closet. Of course there was. Ryan knelt down to Chloe's eye level. Yeah, kiddo, there is. She's having a really bad night. She needed somewhere safe to hide for a little while. Is that okay? Chloe frowned, considering this. Is she nice? I think so. Is she staying for breakfast? Ryan had to suppress a slightly hysterical laugh. I don't know yet. Maybe. Would that be okay? Chloe nodded seriously. But she has to sit in the regular chair, not my special chair. Deal. Ryan kissed her forehead. Now back to bed. For real this time. He carried her back to her room. Evelyn Sinclair, billionaire, fugitive, complete stranger, was sitting on the floor of Chloe's closet among the stuffed animals and dress-up clothes, looking more out of place than any human being Ryan had ever seen. Their eyes met. Evelyn's expression was unreadable. Shame, maybe, or gratitude, or just bone-deep exhaustion. The nice lady needs to hide a little longer, Ryan told Chloe, settling her back into bed. But she'll be quiet, promise. Okay, Chloe yawned. Night, Daddy. Night, lady. Night, sweetheart, Evelyn said softly from the closet, and something in her voice cracked. Ryan closed the closet door most of the way, leaving it open just enough that Evelyn wouldn't suffocate, then tucked Chloe in again. This time she fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from being woken up twice. Ryan stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at nothing, trying to process the last 20 minutes of his life. Then he went back to the kitchen, grabbed the first aid kit from under the sink, and returned to Chloe's room. He opened the closet door fully. Evelyn was still sitting there, knees pulled to her chest, looking small and lost among the toys. Come on, Ryan said quietly. You're bleeding all over my daughter's dress-up clothes. Evelyn followed him to the bathroom. Ryan flipped on the light, and for the first time he got a real look at her. The blood on her temple came from a gash just above her eyebrow. Not deep enough for stitches, probably, but ugly. Her suit was torn at the shoulder. Bruises were already forming on her arms. She looked like someone who'd been through a war. Sit, he said, nodding to the toilet lid. She sat, Ryan wet a washcloth and carefully cleaned the blood from her face. She flinched when he touched the cut but didn't pull away. Up close, he could see that she was younger than he'd first thought, maybe early 30s, with the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers. Even terrified and injured, she was beautiful in a way that made Ryan acutely aware of how much he didn't belong in her world. "This is going to sting," he warned, pulling out the hydrogen peroxide. "I've had worse tonight," Evelyn said. He dabbed the peroxide on the cut. She sucked in a breath but stayed still. Ryan worked quietly, applying antibiotic ointment, placing a butterfly bandage to hold the edges together. "You're good at this," Evelyn said. "Daughter's 7. I've handled my share of scraped knees." Ryan stepped back, studying his work. "It'll scar, probably, but you'll live." "Thank you." Evelyn's voice was barely above a whisper. "For all of it. The hiding, the lying, I know you didn't have to do any of that." Ryan leaned against the sink, suddenly aware of how tired he was. "Yeah, well, jury's still out on whether I made the right call." He crossed his arms. "So, you want to tell me what the hell is actually going on? And don't give me the vague 'my board wants me dead' thing. I need details, real ones. Because those men are going to come back, and when they do, I need to know what I'm dealing with." Evelyn was quiet for a moment, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, harder, more controlled. This was the billionaire talking now, not the terrified woman from the crashed car. "Sinclair Global Holdings owns or controls about 40% of the commercial development in this state. Shopping centers, office buildings, industrial parks. Most people don't know our name, but they work in our buildings, shop in our properties, live in our developments." She looked up at him. 2 months ago, I started noticing irregularities in our accounting. Money disappearing into subsidiaries that didn't exist. Contracts awarded to shell companies with no actual operations. Millions of dollars just vanishing. "Keith, someone was stealing from you," Ryan said. "Several someones. Members of my executive board, my CFO, 2 vice presidents, and my head of legal. They'd built an entire shadow structure inside my company to funnel money into offshore accounts." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "When I confronted them, they tried to buy me off, offered me $100 million to look the other way. When I refused, they tried to have me declared mentally unfit. When that didn't work," she gestured at her face, "they decided to solve the problem more directly." Ryan processed this. "How much money are we talking about?" "Conservatively, $3 billion over the last 5 years. Jesus Christ. They have politicians on payroll, judges, police chiefs. The district attorney is one of them." Evelyn's voice was flat now, reciting facts. "I couldn't go to the authorities because half of them are part of the network. I couldn't trust my security team because they'd been bought. I couldn't even access my own money because they froze my accounts the moment I became a liability." "So you ran?" "I ran." Evelyn laughed bitterly. "The most powerful woman in the state, running for her life like a criminal. I managed to grab some evidence before they locked me out of the company systems. Financial records, recorded conversations, emails. It's on a drive hidden in my car. If I can get that to the right people who aren't already compromised, I can end this. But first, I have to stay alive long enough to make that happen." Ryan rubbed his face, feeling the weight of it settling on his shoulders. "And those guys outside? The ones looking for you? Private military contractors. My board hired them through a company called Sentinel Solutions. Officially, they're protective services. Unofficially, they're very good at making problems disappear." Evelyn met his eyes. "They won't stop looking, and when they figure out I was here, they'll come back. They'll tear this place apart. They'll threaten you, hurt you if they have to. And if they think you helped me..." She trailed off, but the implication hung in the air. "They'll kill me," Ryan finished, "and probably Chloe too, just to tie up loose ends." Evelyn flinched like he'd hit her. "I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have put this on you. I'll leave. First light, I'll figure something out, and you can tell them you never saw me. You can..." "Where exactly are you going to go?" Ryan cut her off. "You said it yourself. No money, no allies, no safe places. You walk out that door, you're dead by sunrise. Better me than you and your daughter. Yeah, well, that's not really how this works anymore." Ryan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Look, I'm not a hero. I'm not brave. I'm just a guy trying to keep his kid fed and the lights on. But I already lied to those men. I already hid you, so like it or not, I'm in this now. He looked at her. Question is, what the hell do we do next? Evelyn stared at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. You're serious. Do I look like I'm joking? You look like a man who's about to make a very stupid decision. Yeah, well, Ryan gave her a tired smile. Wouldn't be my first. They sat there in his tiny bathroom with its chipped tile and flickering light, a billionaire and a mechanic, both of them in way over their heads. The evidence, Evelyn said finally, it's in my car, in a hidden compartment under the passenger seat. If we can retrieve it, if we can get it to the FBI field office in the Capitol, we might have a chance. Your car is sitting in a ditch in full view of the road, Ryan pointed out, and those guys are probably watching it. I know. So we need a plan. Ryan stood, pacing the small space. We need to get that drive without getting killed, and we need to do it before they figure out I was lying and come back with less polite questions. I don't suppose you have any tactical training? Evelyn asked. Military background? Experience with covert operations? Ryan snorted. I fix cars for a living. The most covert thing I've ever done is hide a six-pack from my ex-wife. He paused. But I do know these roads, and I know how to move a vehicle without anyone hearing. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that if we wait until about 4 a.m, when most people are at their lowest, when even hired killers get tired, we might be able to tow that SUV somewhere less exposed. Get it into my garage, get your drive, figure out the rest from there. That's a terrible plan, Evelyn said. You got a better one? Masul, she didn't. Ryan checked his watch. 1:45 in the morning. They had about 2 hours to prepare, which meant 2 hours to either come to their senses or commit to the kind of stupidity that got people killed. He led Evelyn back to the living room, gave her a blanket and a pillow from the hall closet. She looked at them like she'd never seen such basic objects before. You've never slept on a couch, have you? Ryan asked. I've never slept on anything that cost less than $10,000, Evelyn admitted. She sank onto his threadbare sofa, pulling the blanket around herself. This is different. Yeah, well, welcome to how the other 99% lives. Ryan moved to the window, checking the road again. Still empty. Get some rest. We move in 2 hours. Ryan? Evelyn's voice stopped him as he turned to leave. Why are you helping me? Okay. He thought about that. Thought about Chloe sleeping down the hall. Thought about all the times in his life he'd chosen the safe option, the careful option, the option that kept him small and invisible. Because I'm tired of being the kind of person who doesn't, he said finally. Get some sleep. He left her there and went to his own room, but he didn't sleep. Instead, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the wall, wondering what the hell he'd just volunteered for. His phone sat on the nightstand. He could still call the police, could still claim he'd found Evelyn after those men left, could still extract himself from this nightmare before it consumed everything. But he didn't reach for the phone. Instead, he thought about a 7-year-old girl who'd learned too young that the world was full of people who left when things got hard, who disappeared when you needed them most, who decided you weren't worth the trouble. Maybe Evelyn Sinclair wasn't his problem, but maybe being the kind of man who turned away from someone in trouble was a bigger problem than anything those men outside could do to him. At 3:30 in the morning, Ryan got up and started gathering what they'd need. His tow cables, work gloves, flashlights with red filters to preserve night vision. He moved quietly, trying not to wake Chloe, trying not to think too hard about all the ways this could go wrong. At 4 a.m., he woke Evelyn. Time to go, he said quietly. She stood without complaint, her expensive suit now dry but still ruined. In the darkness of his living room, with fear and determination etched across her face, she didn't look much like a billionaire anymore. She just looked human. Ready? Ryan asked. Evelyn took a breath, then nodded. Ready. They stepped out into what was left of the night, and Ryan wondered if he'd ever see the sunrise again. The rain had softened to a drizzle by the time Ryan and Evelyn crept out of the house, but the darkness was absolute. No moon, no stars, just the kind of blackness that swallowed everything beyond the reach of Ryan's red-filtered flashlight. "Stay close," he whispered, leading her toward the garage. "And keep that light pointed at the ground. Buckets." Evelyn followed without argument, her heels crunching on the gravel. She'd taken them off after the first few steps, carrying them in one hand while she walked barefoot through the mud and stones. Ryan noticed but didn't comment. The woman who probably had a different pair of $1,000 shoes for every day of the month was currently ruining her feet on his driveway, and she hadn't complained once. They reached the garage and Ryan eased the side door open, wincing at the slight creak. Inside, he moved quickly, grabbing his tow cables and loading them into the bed of his pickup, a beat-to-hell Ford F-15. Oh, that was older than Chloe and ran on prayers and spite. "This is your truck?" Evelyn asked quietly. "You were expecting something nicer?" "I wasn't expecting it to still have all its wheels, honestly." Despite everything, Ryan almost smiled. "She's got character, and she's quiet when she needs to be." He finished loading the equipment, then paused, looking at Evelyn. "Last chance to back out. We do this. There's no taking it back." Evelyn met his eyes in the darkness. "I stopped having chances to back out when they tried to kill me the first time. Let's go." They climbed into the truck. Ryan turned the key slowly, and the engine caught with a low rumble that sounded like thunder in the pre-dawn silence. He held his breath, waiting to see if any lights would appear on the road, if anyone had been watching the property after all. Nothing. Ryan put the truck in neutral and let it roll backward out of the garage, using gravity instead of the engine to move them. Only when they were clear of the building did he ease it into gear and start driving, headlights off, navigating by memory, and the faint glow of his red flashlight taped to the dashboard. The road was empty. Dead. Ryan's hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel despite the cold. Beside him, Evelyn sat rigid, her eyes scanning the darkness like she expected gunfire at any moment. "There," she said quietly, pointing ahead. The Mercedes SUV sat exactly where they'd left it, nose down in the drainage ditch, abandoned and dark. Ryan slowed the truck to a crawl, then killed the engine about 20 yards away. Silence rushed in, broken only by the drizzle and their breathing. "I don't see anyone," Evelyn whispered. "Doesn't mean they're not there." Ryan grabbed the flashlight, clicked it off. "Wait here." Like hell. Evelyn was already opening her door. "That's my car. I'm coming." Ryan wanted to argue but didn't have time. They moved together toward the SUV, stepping carefully, every sound amplified in the darkness. The vehicle looked worse up close. The front end crumpled, windshield spiderwebbed, airbags deflated like dying balloons. Ryan tried the passenger door, still unlocked. He eased it open, the dome light flickering on before he could stop it. Both of them froze, waiting for shouts, for movement, for anything. Nothing came. "Under the seat," Evelyn breathed. "There's a release mechanism near the front edge." Ryan climbed halfway into the vehicle, fumbling beneath the passenger seat. His fingers found a small lever and he pulled it. Something clicked. A panel dropped down, revealing a hidden compartment about the size of a shoebox. Inside was a small hard drive, wrapped in waterproof plastic. "Got it," Ryan said, pulling it free. "That's everything," Evelyn said from behind him. "Financial records, audio files, emails. $3 billion of theft, all documented." Ryan backed out of the SUV, clutching the drive. "Then let's get the hell out of here before—" Headlights appeared on the road, 2 sets coming fast from the west. "Shit." Ryan grabbed Evelyn's arm and pulled her toward the ditch, away from the approaching vehicles. They half ran, half slid down the muddy embankment, putting the crashed Mercedes between them and the road just as the vehicles pulled up. Doors opened. Voices carried through the rain. "Still here," someone said, a man's voice deep and irritated. "I told Carter we should have just torched it. Boss wants it searched first." Another voice, younger, says there might be evidence inside. Ryan and Evelyn pressed themselves flat against the cold metal of the SUV, barely breathing. Through the shattered window above them, Ryan could see flashlight beams sweeping across the interior. "Passenger doors open," the first man said. "Someone's been here." "Recent?" Can't tell. Could be from the crash. The younger man climbed into the vehicle, and Ryan heard him moving around, searching. Glove box is empty, center console too, nothing in the back seat. Check under the seats. Ryan's heart stopped. His hand tightened on the hard drive in his pocket. Above them, the man grunted, shifting his weight. There's some kind of release here. Hold on. The sound of the mechanism clicking. Then silence. Compartment's empty. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Nothing here. Whatever she was hiding, she already grabbed it. Then she's still alive. The first man's voice went cold. And she's somewhere close. You don't crash your car and walk 5 miles in the rain. She found help. The guy with the garage. Has to be. Carter said he was lying. We should have pressed harder. Ryan felt Evelyn tense beside him. Her hand found his in the darkness, squeezed hard enough to hurt. So we go back, the younger man said. Ask nicer this time. No. We do this smart. Boss wants her isolated, desperate. We start putting pressure on the mechanic. See if she shows herself to protect him. A pause. Pull up his file. Let's see what we're working with. There was the sound of a phone screen lighting up. Then the first man reading. Ryan Mercer, 32. Widower? No, separated. Wife walked out 3 years ago, never filed divorce. 1 kid, daughter, 7 years old. Works at Patterson's Auto. Does side jobs out of his home garage. Credit score in the toilet. Late on rent twice in the last year. No criminal record. A low chuckle. This guy's barely holding it together. Should be easy to break. What's the play? We start small. Financial pressure. Then we escalate. By tomorrow night, Ryan Mercer's going to be begging to turn her over just to make it stop. They climbed back into their vehicles and drove off, leaving Ryan and Evelyn shaking in the mud beside a crashed car that had nearly become their grave. For a long moment, neither of them moved. I'm sorry, Evelyn finally whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't think... Save it! Ryan stood, pulling her up with him. We need to move, now! They ran back to the truck, no longer caring about noise or stealth. Ryan fired up the engine and drove hard, headlights on now, racing back toward his property before anyone circled back. They made it to the garage in under 2 minutes, and Ryan killed the lights as they coasted inside. Only when the garage door was closed and locked did he let himself breathe. Evelyn slumped against the workbench, her hands shaking. They're going to destroy you. Everything you have, they're going to take it apart piece by piece until... I heard. Ryan pulled the hard drive from his pocket, stared at it. This small piece of plastic and metal that was apparently worth $3 billion and an unknown number of lives. Question is, what do we do about it? Well, I don't know. Evelyn's voice broke slightly. I don't know anymore. Maybe I should just turn myself in, end this before they hurt you and Chloe. And then what? You think they'll just let you testify? You'll be dead before you make it to a courtroom. Ryan set the drive on the workbench. No, we're past that option. We need to go on offense. Offense? Evelyn laughed bitterly. Ryan, we're a mechanic and a fugitive hiding in a garage. They have military contractors, bought politicians, and $3 billion in stolen money to protect. How exactly do we go on offense? By using the one thing they don't expect. Ryan turned to face her. We stop running. We make them come to us. And when they do, we make sure the whole world is watching. Evelyn stared at him. That's insane. Probably. But it's better than sitting here waiting to die. Before Evelyn could respond, a small voice cut through the garage. Daddy? Ryan spun around to find Chloe standing in the doorway to the house, still in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Her eyes were wide and scared. Hey, baby. But Ryan crossed to her immediately, kneeling down. What are you doing up? I heard the truck. Chloe looked past him at Evelyn. Is the nice lady okay? She's fine, kiddo. We were just, Are the bad men going to hurt us? Ryan's chest tightened. What makes you think there are bad men? I heard them before, at the door. They sounded mean. Chloe's lip trembled, like when Mommy's boyfriend used to yell. Ryan hadn't known his ex-wife had a boyfriend who yelled. Hadn't known because Sarah had never told him, never let him know anything was wrong before she just vanished. Another thing he'd failed to protect his daughter from. No one's going to hurt us, he said, pulling Chloe into a hug. I promise. We're safe. But you're scared, Chloe said into his shoulder. I can tell. Kids saw too much, understood too much. Ryan held her tighter, wishing he could lie better, wishing he could make the world into something that didn't require 7-year-olds to worry about bad men at their door. I'm scared, he admitted quietly. But I'm also going to make sure we're okay. All of us. He pulled back, looking at his daughter's face. Can you be brave for me? Just a little while longer? Chloe nodded, even though her eyes were still wet with tears. Evelyn had moved closer, and she knelt down beside them. Hi, Chloe. We met earlier, but I don't think I introduced myself properly. My name is Evelyn. That's a fancy name, Chloe said. Yeah, I suppose it is. Evelyn smiled, though it looked fragile. Your dad is helping me with something really important, and I promise I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe while we do it, okay? Okay. Chloe looked between them. Are you Daddy's friend now? Evelyn glanced at Ryan, something complicated passing across her face. I'd like to be, if that's all right with you. You can be friends, Chloe decided, but you have to stay for pancakes. Daddy makes them on Saturday mornings. It's Friday, Ryan said gently, but when it's Saturday, she has to stay. Ryan found himself almost smiling despite everything. Deal. Now back to bed, okay? For real this time. He carried Chloe back to her room, tucked her in once more, and sang the terrible song until she fell asleep. When he returned to the garage, Evelyn was sitting on the floor with her back against the workbench, staring at nothing. She's sweet, Evelyn said quietly. She's everything. Ryan sat down beside her, suddenly exhausted, which is why I need to figure out how to end this before those men make good on their threats. What did you mean before? About making them come to us? Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I mean, we stop hiding. We take that drive, we make copies, and we start distributing evidence everywhere we can think of. News outlets, federal agencies, social media, everywhere. We make it so public they can't just disappear you quietly. They'll come after us harder. Yeah, but they'll also be exposed. And exposure means witnesses, means accountability, means they can't just kill us and walk away clean. Ryan looked at her. It's risky as hell, but staying quiet guarantees we lose. At least this way, we've got a chance. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment, considering. We'd need to move fast, get the evidence out before they realize what we're doing. Can you access your company's financial systems, even remotely? I'm a talktant. Not anymore. They locked me out. Evelyn frowned. But I know people. Journalists who've been sniffing around Sinclair Global for years. If I can get them this evidence, they'll run with it, especially if I give them an exclusive. You know anyone at the FBI? Someone clean? There's an agent who tried to investigate one of our subsidiaries last year. She got shut down by her superiors, but she seemed legitimate, angry about it. And Evelyn pulled out her phone, somehow still intact despite the crash, and scrolled through contacts. Agent Rebecca Torres, worked out of the Capitol Field office. Call her. It's 4:30 in the morning. Then she'll be awake and pissed off, which means she'll listen. Ryan stood, offering his hand. Come on, we've got work to do. They spent the next hour in Ryan's kitchen making copies of the hard drive onto every spare USB stick and SD card Ryan had accumulated over the years. 6 copies total, each one representing a potential lifeline. While the files transferred, Evelyn wrote out a detailed summary of everything she'd discovered. Dates, amounts, names, shell companies, all of it. At 5:30, she called Agent Torres. The phone rang 4 times before a woman's voice answered, rough with sleep and irritation. This better be important. Agent Torres, my name is Evelyn Sinclair. You don't know me, but I know exactly who you are. Torres's voice sharpened immediately. CEO of Sinclair Global Holdings. What the hell are you doing calling me at this hour? I have evidence of a multi-billion-dollar fraud operation running through my company. Evidence that members of my board have been stealing for years with help from local law enforcement and politicians. Evidence that when I tried to expose them, they tried to kill me. Evelyn's voice was steady now, falling into the cadence of someone used to running boardrooms. I need to know if you're the kind of agent who cares about that, or if you're on their payroll too. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? I can't tell you that yet, but I can tell you that I have documentation for every transaction, every shell company, every bribe. And I'm prepared to hand it all over to you if you can guarantee my safety and the safety of the people helping me. Ms. Sinclair, if what you're saying is true, you need protection right now. Tell me where you are and I'll send a team. No teams, not yet. They have people everywhere. I need to know I can trust you first. Evelyn looked at Ryan, who nodded. I'm going to send you a sample of the evidence. Look at it. Verify it. Then we'll talk about next steps. Evelyn, check your email in 10 minutes. She hung up before Torres could respond. Ryan had already pulled up a burner email account on his ancient laptop. They attached a selection of files, financial records showing transfers to shell companies, recorded phone conversations between board members discussing the scheme, emails laying out the plan to remove Evelyn from the company. This goes public, Evelyn said quietly as Ryan hit send. My entire company collapses. Thousands of people lose their jobs. Investors lose billions. My family's name becomes synonymous with corruption. Your family's name or your name? Both. Evelyn stared at the screen. My grandfather built Sinclair Global from nothing. My father expanded it into what it became, and I'm about to tear it all down. No, Ryan said. They tore it down when they decided stealing $3 billion was worth destroying everything your family built. You're just making sure the truth comes out. Evelyn's phone rang. Torres calling back. She answered. That was fast. I've been investigating Sinclair Global for 18 months, Torres said, her voice tight. I had pieces, fragments, enough to know something was wrong, but not enough to build a case. My supervisors shut me down, told me to focus on other priorities. What you just sent me. A pause. This is everything. This is a slam dunk case against some of the most powerful people in the state. So you believe me. I believe the evidence. Now I need to believe you're going to survive long enough to testify. Torres's voice softened slightly. Ms. Sinclair, whoever you're hiding with, they're in danger too. You need federal protection today. Not yet. They're watching everything. The moment federal agents show up, they'll know we're moving against them and they'll destroy evidence, flee the country, or just kill everyone involved and claim it was an accident. Evelyn closed her eyes. I need 24 hours. Can you give me that? To do what? Whoops. To make this so public they can't cover it up. I'm sending copies of everything to journalists, federal agencies, state investigators. By tomorrow morning, this story is going to be everywhere. And once it's out, once the whole world knows, they can't just make us disappear. Torres was quiet. That's a hell of a risk. It's the only play I have left. Another pause, then 24 hours. But if you're not in my protective custody by this time tomorrow, I'm coming to find you myself. Understood? Understood. Thank you, Agent Torres. Don't thank me yet. Just stay alive. The call ended. Ryan and Evelyn looked at each other across the kitchen table, both of them realizing they'd just committed to a plan that would either save their lives or guarantee their deaths. No turning back now, Ryan said. No turning back, Evelyn agreed. They spent the next hour reaching out to journalists. Evelyn had contacts at major newspapers, television networks, online investigative outlets. Most didn't answer at first. It was still barely 6 in the morning, but the ones who did picked up their phones immediately when they realized who was calling. This is Evelyn Sinclair, she said to an investigative reporter at the Tribune. I have evidence of a massive fraud operation involving my company, local government officials, and organized crime. Are you interested in an exclusive? The reporter was very interested. By 7 a.m., they'd seeded the story to 5 different news organizations, each with partial evidence and a promise of more to come. They'd also sent copies to the state attorney general, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and 3 watchdog organizations that specialized in corporate corruption. The sun was rising now, pale light filtering through the kitchen windows. Ryan made coffee, bitter and weak because he'd been stretching the grounds to make them last, and they sat at the table, both of them too wired to sleep, too exhausted to think clearly. "What happens now?" Evelyn asked. "Now we wait," Ryan said. "Wait for the story to break. Wait for your board to realize what we've done. Wait for them to make their move. They're going to come after you first." Evelyn's hands tightened around her coffee mug. "Everything that man said last night, the financial pressure, the escalation, they're going to try to destroy your life to get to me." "Let them try." Ryan's jaw set. "I've been broke before. I've had my life fall apart before. I'm still standing." "We're sorry. All parts." "This is different. They're not going to just ruin your credit or fire you from your job. They're going to—" She stopped, looking toward the hallway where Chloe was still sleeping. "They're going to use her." Ryan felt something cold settle in his stomach. "What do you mean?" "They're going to manufacture a reason to take her away from you. False abuse claims, neglect charges, something that puts her in state custody while they investigate. And once she's in the system, they'll have leverage. They'll tell you that if you give me up, you get your daughter back." Evelyn's voice cracked slightly. "It's what I would do if I were them. It's the most effective pressure point." "Mom, ich bin maspotant." Ryan stood abruptly, the chair scraping across the floor. He walked to the window, staring out at his small yard, his failing garage, the life he'd built from scraps and stubbornness. Somewhere out there, men were planning to take his daughter, to use her as a weapon against him. "Then we don't give them time," he said quietly. "We accelerate everything, force their hand before they can make their moves." "How?" Ryan turned to face her. "You said your company is having their annual shareholders gala tomorrow night. Big event, lots of press, all the major players in one place." "Yes, but I'm not exactly on the guest list anymore." "What if you showed up anyway? What if we walked into that ballroom with cameras rolling and evidence ready to broadcast, and we laid it all out in front of everyone?" "They can't kill us in front of 500 witnesses and 20 news crews. Ichios." "They'll have security. They'll remove us before we get anywhere near that ballroom." "Not if we're smart about it." Ryan's mind was racing now, pulling together half-formed ideas into something that might resemble a plan. "You built that company. You know the building, the layout, the security protocols. There has to be a way in they won't expect." Evelyn stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "You want to crash my own company's gala, with evidence of massive fraud, in front of the entire state's business elite. You got a better idea?" She thought about it. Then, slowly, a smile crossed her face. The first real smile Ryan had seen from her. It was sharp and dangerous and absolutely terrifying. "The service entrance," she said. "Loading docks on the south side of the building. Security there is minimal because it's supposed to be locked from the inside. But there's an override code that only executives know. It hasn't been changed in 5 years. So we get in through the loading docks. We get in through the loading docks. Then we use the service elevator to reach the top floor where the gala is being held." Evelyn was warming to the idea now, her strategic mind engaging. "The presentation system in the ballroom is controlled from a tech booth backstage. If we can access that, we can override whatever presentation they're showing and broadcast our evidence instead." "Can you access it?" "Mont. I designed that whole system. I can absolutely access it." She paused. "But Ryan, this is beyond risky. If anything goes wrong, if they catch us before we can get the evidence out, we're dead. Both of us." "Yeah." Ryan finished his coffee, set the mug down with more force than necessary. "But if we do nothing, we're dead anyway. At least this way, we go down swinging." The sound of small feet padding across the floor made them both turn. Chloe appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes, her stuffed rabbit dragging behind her. "Is it Saturday yet?" she asked hopefully. "Not yet, baby," Ryan said, moving to scoop her up. "Soon, though." "Is Evelyn staying for pancakes?" Ryan looked at Evelyn, who was watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Yeah, he said. "Yeah, she's staying." He made pancakes while Evelyn sat at the table with Chloe, listening to a 7-year-old explain the complex social dynamics of first grade with the seriousness of a corporate merger. Despite everything, despite the danger hanging over them like a blade, there was something almost normal about it. A man making breakfast. A woman drinking terrible coffee. A child talking about her friend who brought fancy markers to school. For just a few minutes, they could almost pretend they were a family instead of fugitives counting down the hours until everything exploded. The pancakes were lumpy and slightly burned, but Chloe ate 3 of them while Evelyn picked at one, still listening as Chloe moved on to describing every single Pokemon she'd learned about this week. "You're good with her," Ryan said quietly when Chloe went to get dressed for school. "I've never been around children before," Evelyn admitted. "In my world, people don't have kids. They have heirs. It's different." "She likes you." "I like her too." Evelyn set down her fork. "Which is why I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay, if this goes wrong tomorrow night, if they get to us before we can expose them, I need you to promise me you'll take Chloe and run. Take her somewhere far away, change your names if you have to, but get her out of this." "Evelyn, promise me, Ryan. This is my fight, my company, my board, my mess. You got dragged into it by accident. But Chloe? She's innocent, and she deserves a chance to grow up even if we don't." Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to say they'd all make it through this together. But he'd stopped believing in fairy tales a long time ago, and Evelyn was right. Chloe was innocent. Chloe deserved protection above everything else. "I promise," he said quietly. "If it goes wrong, I get her out." "Thank you." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of that promise settling between them. Then Chloe came running back into the kitchen wearing mismatched socks and her favorite shirt with a unicorn on it, and the moment broke. "School time!" she announced. Ryan's stomach dropped. School. Right. Because the world kept turning even when your life was actively falling apart. He'd completely forgotten that it was Friday, that Chloe had school, that he was supposed to maintain some semblance of normalcy while hiding a fugitive billionaire and planning to crash a corporate gala. "Actually, kiddo," he said carefully, "I think you're going to stay home today." Chloe's face lit up. "Really? But I'm not sick." "I know, but I need you here with me today. We're going to have a special daddy-daughter day. Sound good?" "Can Evelyn come too?" Ryan glanced at Evelyn, who looked uncertain. "If she wants to," he said. "I'd like that," Evelyn said softly. So they had a daddy-daughter day that was actually a hiding from assassins while preparing to commit corporate espionage day, but Chloe didn't need to know that part. They watched cartoons, built a fort in the living room. Evelyn tried to help with the fort and proved to be absolutely terrible at it, which made Chloe giggle uncontrollably. Around noon, Ryan's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Hello? Mr. Mercer?" A woman's voice, professional and cold. "This is Patricia Webb from Child Protective Services. We've received a report regarding the welfare of your daughter." Ryan's blood went cold. "What kind of report?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss specifics over the phone. However, we need to conduct a welfare check as soon as possible. Would 3 o'clock this afternoon work for you?" It was happening. Exactly what Evelyn had predicted. They were coming for Chloe. "Today's not good," Ryan said, keeping his voice steady despite the panic clawing at his chest. "How about Monday?" "Mr. Mercer, this is a time-sensitive matter. If you're unable to accommodate a visit today, I'll have no choice but to escalate this to emergency intervention protocols." "Escalate it to whatever you want. I know my rights. You can't just take my kid without a warrant." "Mr. Mercer," he hung up. Evelyn was staring at him from the couch where she'd been watching cartoons with Chloe. "They're making their move." "Yeah." Ryan's hands were shaking. "We need to accelerate the timeline." "We go tonight." "Tonight? Ryan, the gala isn't until tomorrow night. We need time to—" "We don't have time. They just tried to get access to my daughter. The next step is them showing up with police and a court order that some corrupt judge signed an hour ago." He moved to the window, checking the road again, still empty, but for how long? "We leak everything tonight, every piece of evidence, every file, every recording. We flood the media so completely they can't ignore it. And then tomorrow we still crash the gala, but by then, the story's already breaking. The evidence is already out. We're just there to make sure everyone knows it's real." Evelyn stood, processing this. "It might work. If we move fast enough, if we get the evidence distributed before they realize what we're doing, then we've got a shot." Ryan looked at Chloe, who was absorbed in the cartoon, completely unaware that her whole world was about to change. I need to get her somewhere safe, somewhere they won't think to look. Do you have family, friends? No family. Most of my friends stopped calling when Sarah left. Ryan thought for a moment. But there's a woman, Mrs. Chen, lives about an hour from here. She used to babysit Chloe when I couldn't afford daycare. Good person. Doesn't ask too many questions. Call her. Ryan did. Mrs. Chen answered on the second ring, her voice warm and slightly confused when she heard his voice. Ryan, it's been so long. How are you? I'm okay, Mrs. Chen. Listen, I need a favor, a big one. Can Chloe stay with you tonight? Maybe tomorrow too? Of course. She's always welcome. Is everything all right? It's complicated. I'll explain when I drop her off, but I need to do it soon, like within the hour. There was a pause, and Ryan could almost hear Mrs. Chen deciding not to press for details right now. Bring her over. We'll make cookies. Thank you, really. Thank you. Is she? He packed a bag for Chloe. Clothes, her stuffed rabbit, her favorite books. Then he sat her down and tried to explain that she was going to have a sleepover with Mrs. Chen without explaining why, without scaring her, without revealing that he was terrified he might never see her again. Is it because of the bad men? Chloe asked quietly. Ryan's throat tightened. Yeah, baby, it's because of the bad men. But Mrs. Chen's house is safe, and as soon as I make sure everything's okay, I'll come get you. I promise. Will Evelyn be there too? I hope so. Chloe hugged him so tight it hurt, and Ryan had to fight to keep his voice steady as he hugged her back. They loaded into the truck, Ryan, Chloe, and Evelyn, and drove the hour to Mrs. Chen's house in tense silence. The woman who answered the door was in her 70s, small and kind, with eyes that saw more than people gave her credit for. She looked at Ryan's face, then at Evelyn, then at the fear neither of them could quite hide, and she simply nodded. Go do what you need to do, she said quietly, taking Chloe's hand. This one will be safe with me. If anyone comes asking for her, Ryan said, anyone at all, even if they have badges, they won't find her. Mrs. Chen's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I've hidden people before. I know how it works. Ryan didn't ask what she meant by that. He just kissed Chloe goodbye, told her he loved her, and drove away before she could see him cry. Back at the house, he and Evelyn got to work. They spent the rest of the afternoon and into the evening sending out evidence to every contact they could think of. News organizations, federal agencies, state investigators, corporate watchdog groups, even anonymous tips to social media accounts with large followings. Each package contained the same message. Sinclair Global Holdings' executive board has stolen $3 billion. Here is the proof. By 8 o'clock, Ryan's inbox was exploding with responses. Journalists wanted interviews. Federal agents wanted meetings. Social media was starting to light up with early reports of a massive scandal involving one of the state's largest corporations. It was working. At 9 o'clock, Ryan's phone rang again. The same unknown number from earlier. He answered. What? Mr. Mercer. It was Patricia Webb again, but this time her voice had an edge of panic. I need to inform you that we've escalated your case. Police will be arriving at your residence within the hour to conduct a welfare check. If you do not cooperate, you will be arrested for obstruction. Tell them to bring a warrant, Ryan said, and tell whoever's paying you that they're about to be very publicly exposed for corruption. Check the news in about 20 minutes. He hung up again. At 9:15, the first news alert went out. Breaking, Sinclair Global Holdings CEO alleges massive fraud by her own board. At 9:30, a major television network interrupted their regular programming to report on leaked documents showing billions in stolen funds. At 9:45, the State Attorney General's office issued a statement saying they were launching an immediate investigation. By 10 o'clock, it was everywhere. Ryan and Evelyn watched it unfold on his laptop, seeing their evidence spread across the internet like wildfire. Seeing Evelyn's name trend on social media. Seeing reporters standing outside Sinclair Global's headquarters demanding answers. We did it, Evelyn whispered. It's out there, all of it. Now comes the hard part, Ryan said. Surviving until tomorrow night. Because exposure didn't mean safety. If anything, it meant the people hunting them were now desperate. And desperate people with resources did desperate things. Ryan's phone rang one more time. This time it was a number he recognized. Patterson's Auto, his boss. Ryan? The voice on the other end belonged to Dale Patterson, a man who'd given him a job when no one else would. What the hell is going on? I got police here saying they need to talk to you about harboring a fugitive. Dale, I can't explain right now, but I need you to trust me. I didn't do anything wrong. The woman I'm helping, she's the one exposing the corruption. She's the good guy. The police are saying she's dangerous, that you're aiding and abetting a criminal. The police are lying, or they're being lied to. Check the news, Dale. It's all over the place right now. Evelyn Sinclair is blowing the whistle on billions of dollars in theft, and the people she's exposing are trying to silence her. Silence on the other end. Then, you're serious. Dead serious, and I need you to do me a favor. Tell the police you haven't heard from me. Tell them I didn't show up for work. Tell them whatever you need to tell them, but buy me 24 hours. Another pause. You're a good kid, Ryan. Little crazy sometimes, but good. Don't make me regret covering for you. I won't. Thank you, Dale. The call ended and Ryan felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there were still good people left in the world. People who chose to trust even when it cost them something. But that hope was extinguished about 20 minutes later when headlights appeared on the road outside his house. Not one vehicle this time. 5. They're here, Evelyn said, backing away from the window. Ryan watched as the vehicles surrounded his property, police cruisers mixing with unmarked SUVs. Doors opened and men got out, some in uniform, some in tactical gear, all of them moving with the kind of coordination that came from training and experience. Someone knocked on the door, hard, aggressive, the kind of knock that wasn't really a request. Ryan Mercer! A voice boomed through the wood. This is the police. We have a warrant for your arrest. Come out with your hands visible. Evelyn looked at Ryan, her face pale. What do we do? Ryan thought fast. The house only had 2 exits, front door and back door. Both would be covered. The garage connected to the house, but they'd check there too. Windows were too small to climb through quickly. They were trapped. Unless... The storm cellar, he said quietly. Under the garage. It's old, barely used. They might not know about it. Will it hold us until they leave? It'll have to. They moved quickly and quietly to the garage, and Ryan pulled up the heavy wooden door set into the floor in the corner. Beneath was a concrete-lined hole about 8 feet deep, originally meant for tornado shelter. Ryan had stored some tools down there, some paint cans, nothing important. Now it was going to be their hiding place. Get in, he whispered. Evelyn climbed down the ladder and Ryan followed, pulling the door closed above them just as he heard the sound of his front door being kicked in. They crouched in the darkness, barely breathing, as footsteps thundered through the house above them. Voices shouted commands, doors slammed, furniture scraped across floors. The search was thorough and violent. Then someone entered the garage. Through the cracks in the storm cellar door, Ryan could see flashlight beams sweeping across the space. He held perfectly still, one hand over Evelyn's mouth to muffle any sound, both of them pressed against the cold concrete wall. Clear in here, someone called out. Just tools and car parts. The footsteps retreated. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 minutes, the sounds of the search faded. Ryan heard vehicles starting up outside, doors slamming, voices discussing the next location to check. Then silence. They stayed in the storm cellar for another 30 minutes, just to be sure. When they finally climbed out, Ryan's legs were cramping and his heart was still racing. His house was destroyed. Furniture overturned, drawers emptied, belongings scattered everywhere. They'd torn the place apart looking for evidence, for anything they could use against him. But they hadn't found Evelyn. We can't stay here, Evelyn said, surveying the damage. No, we need somewhere to lay low until tomorrow night. Ryan pulled out his phone, checking the news. The story was bigger now, spreading faster. Multiple news organizations were running with it. Federal investigators were issuing statements. Sinclair Global's stock price had dropped 15% in after-hours trading. The board was cornered, which meant tomorrow night's gala was going to be either their vindication or their grave. I know a place, Ryan said. Old industrial building about 10 miles from here. Been abandoned for years. No power, no heat, but it's shelter. And no one will think to look there. Then let's go. They gathered what they could carry, the remaining copies of evidence, some food, blankets, Ryan's tools. Then they climbed into the truck and drove into the night, leaving behind the only home Ryan had known for the last 5 years. The abandoned building was exactly as bad as he'd remembered. Broken windows, graffiti-covered walls, the smell of decay and rust. But it was hidden, and right now hidden was all that mattered. They set up in what used to be an office on the second floor, spreading blankets on the floor, barricading the door with an old desk. Through the broken windows, they could see the city lights in the distance, could imagine the chaos they'd unleashed spreading through boardrooms and newsrooms and police stations. "You should get some rest," Ryan said. "Tomorrow's going to be hell."
I'm looking.
"I don't think I can sleep." Evelyn sat with her back against the wall, hugging her knees. "Every time I close my eyes, I see them. The board members who tried to kill me. The people I trusted turning into monsters." Ryan sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "For what it's worth, you did the right thing, exposing them." "Did I? Look what it cost. Your home, your safety, your daughter's security, all because I crashed into your life."
But yeah.
"My life was already crashed," Ryan said quietly. "I was just too tired to notice. You didn't ruin anything. You just woke me up. Reminded me I used to be the kind of person who stood up for things, who fought instead of just surviving." Evelyn turned to look at him, and in the dim light from the city, he could see tears on her face. "I'm scared, Ryan. I'm more scared than I've ever been in my life." "Yeah, me too." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat like that in the darkness of an abandoned building. Two people who'd lost everything betting their lives on one last desperate gambit. And somewhere in the distance, the city kept turning, unaware that tomorrow night, in a ballroom full of power and money and corruption, the truth was going to explode like a bomb. Ryan woke to the sound of rain against broken glass and the unfamiliar weight of someone's head still resting on his shoulder. For a confused moment, he couldn't remember where he was or why his back hurt like he'd been hit by a truck. Then it all came rushing back. The abandoned building, the evidence spread across the internet, the gala they were about to crash in less than 12 hours. Evelyn stirred beside him, blinking awake with the disoriented expression of someone who'd forgotten their circumstances while asleep. When memory caught up, her whole body tensed. "What time is it?" she asked, her voice rough. Ryan checked his phone. 7:30 in the morning, and already he had 63 missed calls, hundreds of text messages, and enough voicemails to fill an hour. "Saturday. We've got about 11 hours before the gala starts." "Then we should move." Evelyn stood stiffly, wincing at the ache in her muscles. She looked worse than yesterday. Her expensive suit was beyond saving now, her hair tangled, the bruise on her temple turning spectacular shades of purple and yellow. The billionaire CEO was gone entirely, replaced by someone who looked like they'd been living rough for a week, which, Ryan supposed, she had been. "There's a truck stop about 2 miles from here," he said, gathering their supplies. "We can clean up in the bathrooms, get some actual food, figure out the details." They drove to the truck stop in silence, both of them hyper-aware of every vehicle on the road, every face that glanced their direction. The news vans had multiplied overnight. Ryan counted at least 3 parked outside what used to be Sinclair Global's headquarters as they passed by on the highway. The story had gone from breaking news to full-blown scandal in less than 12 hours. The truck stop was exactly as depressing as Ryan expected. Harsh fluorescent lights, smell of burnt coffee and diesel fuel. Truckers hunched over breakfast plates at 5 a.m., like it was the middle of the day. Nobody looked at them twice. In a place like this, everyone had somewhere to be and problems of their own. Ryan bought them both coffee that tasted like it had been brewed sometime last week, plus some prepackaged sandwiches that were only slightly better than cardboard. They sat in a corner booth, and Ryan pulled out his laptop, connecting to the truck stop's Wi-Fi to see how far the story had spread. It had spread everywhere. Every major news outlet was running with it. Sinclair Global Holdings stock had been suspended from trading pending investigation. The FBI had announced a formal probe. 3 board members had already lawyered up, and Evelyn's face was plastered across every screen in the country, half the articles calling her a whistleblower hero, the other half suggesting she might be part of the fraud herself. "They're trying to spin it," Evelyn said quietly, reading over his shoulder. Make it look like I was involved, that I'm only coming forward now to save myself. Are people buying it? Some will, enough to create doubt. She scrolled through the articles, her jaw tight. That's how this works. You can't hide the truth anymore, not in the digital age. But you can muddy it, make people uncertain about what's real. By the time the facts come out, half the country won't know what to believe. So we need to make them believe. Ryan pulled up the gala information he'd found online. Tonight, in front of cameras and witnesses, we make it undeniable. The gala was scheduled to start at 7 p.m. at the Paramount Tower, a luxury high-rise in the heart of downtown that Sinclair Global owned. According to the event details, it would be attended by roughly 400 people, investors, politicians, business leaders, media. The kind of gathering where power concentrated and deals were made over champagne and carefully worded conversations. Evelyn pulled up the building schematics on her phone, spreading them across the table. Service entrance is here, south side. The override code should still work. They only change it when there's a security breach, and they don't know I'm planning to use it. What's the security situation inside? Normally, there'd be a dozen guards minimum, plus private security for high-profile guests. But with everything that's happened, with the investigation starting, they'll have tripled that. Maybe more. Evelyn traced a path from the service entrance to the service elevator. We use this route, we avoid the main security checkpoints. The elevator takes us directly to the top floor where the ballroom is. And once we're there, the presentation booth is here. She tapped a spot on the schematic. Separate room off the main ballroom, accessible through a backstage corridor. If we can get in there, I can override their system and broadcast our evidence on every screen in the building. Ryan studied the layout, looking for problems. He found about 17 of them. What about getting out? What do you mean? I mean, after we drop this bomb in the middle of their fancy party, how do we not get torn apart by security or arrested or shot? Evelyn was quiet for a moment. We don't get out. Not cleanly, anyway. The goal is to get the evidence in front of everyone. Let them see the recordings and documents live. Once that's done, once hundreds of witnesses have seen it, they can't cover it up even if they kill us afterward. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? Ryan didn't. He hated that he didn't, but there it was. They were committed to a course of action that would probably end with them dead or in jail, and the best they could hope for was that their deaths would mean something. His phone buzzed, a text from Mrs. Chen. Little one is fine, made cookies. Asking about you? Stay safe. Ryan typed back, tell her I love her. And thank you. How's Chloe? Evelyn asked. Safe. That's all that matters. Ryan pocketed his phone before he could think too hard about the possibility that he might never see his daughter again. Come on, we need to find you something to wear that doesn't look like you survived a car crash. They spent the next hour at a discount store buying clothes that would let them blend in. For Evelyn, that meant a simple black dress and heels that were cheap enough not to draw attention, but nice enough to pass at a formal event. For Ryan, it meant a suit from the clearance rack that didn't quite fit right, but would have to do. In the store's bathroom, Evelyn changed and tried to do something with her hair. When she emerged, she looked almost like her old self again, polished, composed, dangerous. The kind of woman who commanded boardrooms and made grown men nervous. Better? She asked. You look like someone who's about to ruin a lot of powerful people's night, Ryan said. So, yeah, better. They killed the rest of the morning in the truck, parked in a lot behind an abandoned strip mall where nobody would notice them. Ryan tried to sleep but couldn't. His mind kept racing through everything that could go wrong, every point where their plan could collapse into disaster. Around noon, his phone rang. Agent Torres. He answered. Yeah? Mr. Mercer, I need to know where you are. Torres sounded stressed, like she'd been up all night dealing with fallout. The situation has escalated significantly. There are warrants out for both you and Ms. Sinclair. Harboring a fugitive, obstruction of justice, about 6 other charges that all smell like bullshit but are technically legal. We're fine, Ryan said, and we'll be in your protective custody by tomorrow, like we promised. That's not good enough anymore. The people you're exposing, they're not playing games. They've got judges, prosecutors, half the police department on speed dial. They're building a case to paint you as accomplices in the fraud, not whistleblowers. Let them try. By tonight, everyone will know the truth. What's happening tonight? Ryan glanced at Evelyn, who shook her head slightly. Can't tell you, but you'll want to be watching the news around 8 p.m. Ryan, we're doing this, Agent Torres, with or without federal backup. But if you want to help, have a team ready to move when everything goes public, because we're either going to need immediate extraction or body bags. He hung up before she could respond. That was risky, Evelyn said. She could trace the call, send agents to grab us before tonight. Torres is solid. If she wanted us arrested, we'd already be in custody. Ryan tossed the phone on the dashboard. Besides, we need her ready to move. The moment that evidence goes live, your board is going to start destroying records and fleeing the country. Federal agents need to be in position to stop that. You're assuming they'll believe us, assuming the evidence is enough. It has to be enough, because we're betting everything on it. The afternoon dragged by in anxious silence. They reviewed the plan a dozen times, looking for weaknesses, trying to patch holes that were probably unpatchable. Around 4 o'clock, Ryan made them eat. More gas station food that tasted like cardboard but would at least keep them functional. Evelyn picked at hers, barely managing half a sandwich. You need to eat, Ryan said. I know, I keep thinking about how many people are going to lose their jobs when this is over. Sinclair Global is going to collapse. Thousands of employees, most of them innocent. Most of them just trying to make a living, and I'm the one pulling the trigger. The board pulled the trigger when they decided stealing $3 billion was worth more than those jobs. Ryan reached across the truck's console, took her hand. You're not destroying the company. You're exposing the people who already destroyed it. There's a difference. Is there? Either way, those employees end up unemployed. Yeah, but at least they'll know it wasn't their fault. At least the truth will be out there. Ryan squeezed her hand. You can't protect everyone, Evelyn. Sometimes you just have to do the right thing and deal with the consequences. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. When did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just too stubborn to quit. He let go of her hand, checked his watch. 5:30. We should move. Get into position before security locks down the building. They drove downtown as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the city in shades of amber and shadow. The Paramount Tower rose above the skyline like a monument to wealth and power. 60 floors of steel and glass, crowned with a ballroom that overlooked the entire metro area. Ryan parked the truck 6 blocks away in a public garage, and they walked the rest of the distance. Evening crowds provided cover, people heading to dinner, to shows, to wherever people went on Saturday nights when their lives weren't actively exploding. Nobody looked at them twice. The Paramount Tower's main entrance was already locked down tight. Security guards checking invitations, metal detectors, the works. But the South Side service entrance was exactly where Evelyn had said it would be. A plain steel door set into the building's foundation, marked only with faded letters. Authorized personnel only. Evelyn punched in a 6-digit code on the keypad. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the lock clicked. Still works, she breathed. They never changed it. They slipped inside, and the door sealed behind them with a sound like a tomb closing. The service corridor was concrete and fluorescent lights, nothing like the marble and luxury of the main building. This was where the real work happened, where the people nobody saw kept everything running. Elevators this way. Evelyn led them down the corridor, moving fast but not running. If anyone saw them, they needed to look like they belonged here. They passed a janitor mopping the floor. He glanced up, nodded vaguely, went back to his work. For him, they were just 2 more people in suits heading somewhere important, nothing unusual. The service elevator was waiting. Ryan hit the button for the 60th floor, and they began to rise. The numbers ticked upward with agonizing slowness. 10, 20, 30. Ryan could feel his pulse in his throat, could feel Evelyn's tension radiating beside him. At 55, the elevator slowed. Someone had called it. Move to the back, Ryan hissed. Act like we belong. They pressed themselves against the rear wall as the elevator stopped and the doors opened. A catering worker wheeled in a cart loaded with champagne bottles, barely glancing at them. Big night, huh? The worker said conversationally. Huge, Evelyn replied, her voice steady. You have any idea how many people are up there? 400, give or take, plus media, security, staff. It's a madhouse. The worker shook his head. At least the pay is good. The elevator reached 60, and the worker rolled his cart out into a staging area where dozens of other staff were preparing for the event. Ryan and Evelyn followed, trying to blend in, trying to look purposeful. Presentation booth is through those doors, Evelyn whispered, nodding toward a corridor marked technical staff only. They separated from the catering area and moved down the corridor. Behind them, Ryan could hear the growing noise of the gala. Music, conversation, the clink of glasses. The party was already starting. The presentation booth was a small room filled with computers and audiovisual equipment, currently unmanned. Through a one-way window, Ryan could see into the ballroom, a massive space filled with round tables, a stage at the far end, screens hanging from the ceiling showing the Sinclair Global logo, and people, hundreds of them, men in tuxedos, women in evening gowns, everyone dripping with wealth and influence. Ryan recognized faces from television, the mayor, a state senator, a federal judge, the kind of people whose decisions shaped lives without them ever noticing. This is it, Evelyn said quietly, moving to the main computer console. Once I start the upload, we'll have maybe 60 seconds before someone realizes what's happening and tries to shut it down. But will 60 seconds be enough? It'll have to be. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing systems she'd designed herself years ago. I'm bypassing the main presentation and creating a direct override. Every screen in that ballroom is about to show exactly what we want them to see. Ryan watched through the window as a man took the stage. Late 50s, silver hair, expensive suit that probably cost more than Ryan's truck. He recognized him from the photos in the evidence files. Marcus Whitfield, chairman of Sinclair Global's board of directors. The man who'd orchestrated the theft of $3 billion. Whitfield's voice boomed through the speakers. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Sinclair Global's annual shareholders gala. As many of you know, this has been a challenging week for our company. The crowd murmured agreement. Baseless allegations have been made by a former executive who, frankly, was removed from her position due to erratic behavior and questionable decisions. Whitfield's tone was smooth, practiced. We want to assure you that these claims are entirely without merit and are being investigated by the appropriate authorities. He's lying through his teeth, Evelyn said, her jaw tight, telling everyone I was fired for being unstable. Then let's show them the truth. Ryan nodded to the computer. Do it. Evelyn hit enter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen in the ballroom flickered, and Whitfield's face disappeared, replaced by a spreadsheet showing wire transfers to offshore accounts. The room went silent. What the hell? Whitfield turned to look at the screens, confusion crossing his face. The spreadsheet was replaced by a recording, audio of a phone conversation between Whitfield and another board member discussing how to hide the stolen funds. Then another document. Then another recording, each one more damning than the last. Evelyn had created a presentation that told the entire story in 2 minutes flat. Shell companies, fraudulent contracts, bribes to politicians, plans to eliminate anyone who discovered the scheme. All of it laid out in documents and recordings that were impossible to dismiss or explain away. The ballroom erupted into chaos. People were standing, shouting, pointing at the screens. Media cameras swung around to capture the images. Security guards rushed toward the technical booth. Time to go, Ryan said, grabbing Evelyn's arm. But when he turned toward the door, 3 security guards were already blocking it. The one in front, a massive guy with a shaved head and an expression that promised violence, smiled grimly. Going somewhere, Ms. Sinclair. Behind them, the presentation continued playing. On the screens, a recording of Whitfield discussing Evelyn's assassination played for 400 witnesses and a dozen news cameras. You're done, Evelyn said to the guard. Everyone just heard everything. You can't cover this up anymore. Maybe not. But we can still tie up loose ends. The guard reached for his weapon. Not a standard security sidearm, something heavier, more lethal. Ryan moved without thinking. He grabbed a metal equipment rack and shoved it at the guards, sending them stumbling backward. Run! They They bolted through the one-way window. Ryan kicked it hard enough to shatter the glass, and they tumbled through into the ballroom just as gunfire erupted behind them. The crowd screamed. People dove under tables, scrambled for exits. More security guards appeared, but they were focused on evacuating guests, not on two people who just crashed through a window. "This way!" Evelyn pulled Ryan toward a side exit, weaving through the panicked crowd. Behind them, the guards from the booth were climbing through the broken window, weapons drawn. They made it to a stairwell and started running down, taking stairs two at a time. Ryan's lungs burned, his cheap suit jacket flapping behind him. Evelyn kicked off her heels and ran barefoot, faster than Ryan would have thought possible. Behind them, heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell. Shouts, radio chatter. "They're coming," Ryan gasped. "Keep moving. We just need to get to ground level. Get outside where there are witnesses." A door above them burst open and gunfire tore through the stairwell. Bullets sparked off metal railings, embedded in concrete. Ryan felt something hot graze his shoulder and stumbled, catching himself on the railing. "Ryan!" Evelyn grabbed him, kept him moving. "I'm fine. Keep going." They hit the 40th floor landing and Evelyn yanked open the door, pulling them into a corridor lined with office doors. All locked, all dark. They ran down the hallway, trying doors as they went, looking for somewhere to hide, somewhere to regroup. The stairwell door crashed open behind them. "End of the line, Ms. Sinclair," a voice called out. Carter, the same man who'd come to Ryan's door that first night. "You've caused enough trouble." I'm receipt that I saw." Ryan spun around to find 3 guards blocking their path backward, weapons raised. Ahead, the corridor dead-ended at a window overlooking the city 40 floors below. They were trapped. "It's over," Carter said, advancing slowly. "The evidence is out there, sure, but evidence needs witnesses who live long enough to testify. And accidents happen all the time in buildings like this." Tragic fall from a 40th floor window. Very sad. "You're insane, Natuma," Evelyn said. "There are cameras everywhere. Hundreds of people saw us at that gala. You can't just..." "Can't we? Your credibility is already shot. Unstable executive, criminal accomplice boyfriend, both of you desperate and cornered. Who's to say you didn't jump?" Carter raised his weapon. "Now, we can do this easy or hard. Your choice." Ryan's mind raced. No exits, no weapons, no way out that didn't end with them dead. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was buying enough time for the evidence to spread, for federal agents to arrive, for the truth to become undeniable. "You want to know the funny thing?" Ryan said, stepping forward. "We already won." Carter's eyes narrowed. "That right?" "Yeah, because while you were chasing us up here, that presentation was going out live on every news feed in the country. Agent Torres has FBI teams moving on your bosses right now. And in about 2 minutes, this building is going to be swarming with federal agents." Son. Ryan smiled, even though his shoulder was bleeding and his hands were shaking. "So go ahead, shoot us, make us martyrs. See how that works out for you." For a moment, Carter hesitated. His finger tightened on the trigger, and Ryan thought this was it. This was how it ended, bleeding out on an office floor while Evelyn watched. Then the stairwell door burst open and Agent Torres appeared with a dozen FBI agents behind her, weapons drawn. "Federal agents, drop your weapons!" The security guards froze, caught between 2 forces. Carter looked at Ryan with pure hatred in his eyes, then slowly lowered his gun. "Smart choice," Torres said. "Now on the ground. Hands behind your heads. All of you." The guards complied, and within seconds they were being cuffed and hauled away. Torres crossed to Ryan and Evelyn, her expression somewhere between relieved and furious. "You two have got to be the most reckless people I've ever worked with," she said. "What the hell were you thinking walking into that gala alone?" "We were thinking we needed witnesses," Evelyn said. "Did it work?" "Did it work?" Torres almost laughed. "Miss Sinclair, your presentation just played on live television to about 40 million people. The FBI has arrested 6 board members, 3 judges, a dozen police officers, and we're still counting. Sinclair Global's assets are frozen pending investigation. The governor just called for a special prosecutor." She shook her head. "Yeah, it worked." Ryan felt his legs go weak. He sat down hard on the floor, his injured shoulder throbbing. So it's over? Oh, the immediate danger, yes. You'll both need to give statements, testify eventually, probably spend the next few months in protective custody while we build the cases. But the part where people are actively trying to kill you, that's done. Evelyn sank down beside Ryan, and for a moment they just sat there on the 40th floor of the Paramount Tower, bleeding and exhausted and alive. Around them, FBI agents secured the scene, hauled away the guards, began the long process of turning a crime scene into evidence. "We did it," Evelyn whispered. "We actually did it." "Yeah." Ryan leaned his head back against the wall, closing his eyes. "Can I see my daughter now?" "Soon," Torres promised. "Medical first, statement second, then you can see your kid. Deal?" "Deal." They were taken downstairs in a service elevator, different from the one they'd come up in, but just as utilitarian. Paramedics waited in the lobby, along with what looked like every federal agent in the state. Ryan's shoulder wound turned out to be minor, just a graze. But they bandaged it anyway, while Evelyn gave her initial statement to a team of investigators. Through the building's glass front, Ryan could see the media circus outside. News vans lined the street, cameras capturing everything, reporters shouting questions at anyone who emerged. The Sinclair Global scandal was the only story that mattered now. Around 9 p.m., Torres finally cleared them to leave. She'd arranged transport to a federal safe house where they'd stay until the immediate chaos settled. But first, she'd agreed to a detour. Mrs. Chen's house was dark and quiet when they pulled up, the FBI sedan looking wildly out of place in the modest neighborhood. Ryan knocked softly on the door, and Mrs. Chen answered within seconds, like she'd been waiting. "She's asleep," the old woman said quietly. "Been worried sick about you, though. Wouldn't settle down until I promised you were coming back. Can I see her?" "Of course." Ryan followed Mrs. Chen to the guest bedroom where Chloe was curled up under a quilt, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight. She looked so small, so innocent, so completely unaware of everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. He sat on the edge of the bed and brushed hair back from her face. "Hey, baby." Chloe's eyes fluttered open. For a moment she looked confused, like she couldn't remember where she was or why. Then she saw Ryan and threw her arms around his neck so hard it hurt his injured shoulder. "Daddy, you came back!" "Of course I came back. I promised, didn't I? You were gone so long. I thought maybe the bad men got you." "The bad men didn't get me. We're safe now. All of us." Ryan held her tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. This was what mattered. Not the money or the power or the corruption, just this small person who trusted him to keep her safe. "Is Evelyn okay too?" Chloe asked. "She's fine. She's outside in the car." "Can she come in? I want to show her the cookies we made." "Oh." Ryan smiled despite himself. "Maybe tomorrow, kiddo. Right now we all need to get some rest." "Are we going home?" "Not tonight. We're going to stay somewhere new for a little while, like an adventure." Ryan pulled back to look at her face. "But I promise, wherever we go together, okay?" "Okay." Chloe yawned, already drifting back towards sleep. "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too, baby. More than anything." He tucked her back in and rejoined Evelyn outside. She was leaning against the FBI sedan, looking up at the stars barely visible through the city's light pollution. "How is she?" Evelyn asked. "Scared, but okay. Resilient. Kids are tougher than we give them credit for." Ryan stood beside her, and they were quiet for a moment. "Thank you for everything. For not giving up when it would have been easier to run. Thank you for hiding a bleeding stranger in your daughter's closet instead of turning her over to armed men." Evelyn looked at him. "I meant what I said before. You woke me up. Reminded me what actually matters." "Which is?" "People. Not corporations or bank accounts or power. Just people trying to do right by each other." She smiled, tired but genuine. "I spent my whole life building something my grandfather would be proud of. Turns out the thing that would have made him proudest was tearing it down to expose the rot." Agent Torres appeared on the porch. "We need to move. Safe house is ready." They climbed into the sedan, and Torres drove them through quiet streets to a nondescript apartment building on the edge of town. The safe house was exactly what it sounded like. Bland, functional, completely anonymous. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, guards posted outside. "You'll stay here until we can arrange more permanent protection," Torres explained. "Could be a few days, could be a few weeks. Depends on how fast the investigation moves." "What happens to Sinclair Global?" Evelyn asked. "Company's in receivership right now. Federal oversight until we can untangle the legitimate operations from the criminal enterprise. Eventually, it'll probably be broken up and sold. Employees will get severance packages funded by the recovered stolen money." Torres pulled out a folder. "You'll be called to testify at multiple trials. The whole board is facing RICO charges, conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder. This is going to take years to fully resolve." "And Ryan?" Evelyn asked. "The charges against him?" "Dropped. All of them. He's a witness now, not a suspect." Torres looked at Ryan. "Though I gotta say, harboring a fugitive and breaking into a corporate gala are not standard hero behavior." "I'm not a hero," Ryan said. "I'm just a guy who made some questionable choices. Questionable choices that helped expose $3 billion in stolen money and a corruption network that went all the way to the governor's office. I'd say those choices worked out okay." Torres headed for the door. "Get some rest, both of you. Tomorrow starts the real work." She left them alone in the safe house with guards outside and the weight of everything they'd survived finally catching up. Ryan collapsed onto the couch, every muscle in his body screaming. Evelyn sat beside him, and they stayed like that for a while, too exhausted to move, too wired to sleep. "What do you think happens next?" Evelyn finally asked. "After the trials, Evelyn, after everything settles, what do you do with your life when you've burned down your entire world?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "Maybe rebuild. Maybe start over somewhere nobody knows my name. Take Chloe somewhere with better schools, safer streets. Try to be the kind of father who doesn't drag his kid into corporate conspiracies." "That wasn't your fault." "Wasn't it? I chose to help you, chose to hide you, to lie for you, to risk everything for someone I barely knew." Ryan looked at her. "Don't get me wrong, I'd make the same choice again, but I can't pretend it didn't cost something." "It cost everything I had too," Evelyn said quietly. "My company, my reputation, my entire life. Everyone I thought I could trust turned out to be either corrupt or too scared to stand with me. You were the only person who chose to help when it actually mattered." "So what does that make us? Partners in destruction?" "Maybe. Or maybe just 2 people who finally learned what's worth protecting." Evelyn leaned her head on his shoulder, the way she had in the abandoned building, and Ryan realized this had become familiar somehow. Comfortable. "I'm going to rebuild too. Start something new, something clean. Maybe not as big as Sinclair Global, but something that actually helps people instead of just extracting value from them." "That sounds nice, Prikoki. Would you want to be part of it? When this is all over, when we're allowed to have lives again. You could run the operations side. You understand how things actually work, how ordinary people make it through their days. That's the perspective I always lacked." Ryan thought about it, thought about spending his days working with Evelyn instead of against the world, thought about Chloe growing up around someone who believed in building things that mattered, thought about what it might be like to have a future that wasn't just survival. "Maybe," he said. "Ask me again when we're not fugitives hiding in a federal safe house." Evelyn smiled. "Deal." Well, they sat together as night deepened outside. 2 people who'd lost everything and somehow found something worth keeping in the wreckage. Tomorrow would bring statements and lawyers and the grinding machinery of justice. But tonight, they were just alive. Just safe. Just 2 people who'd chosen to stand when they could have run. And somewhere in a house across town, a 7-year-old girl slept with her stuffed rabbit, dreaming of the day her father would come home and everything would finally be okay. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still trials to face, testimony to give, years of legal battles ahead. The corruption they'd exposed would take decades to fully root out. Evelyn's company was destroyed, Ryan's life was upended, and neither of them knew exactly what came next. But they'd won the only victory that really mattered. They'd told the truth and lived to see it believed. The rest, they'd figure out together. Besides, 3 weeks in the safe house felt like 3 years. Ryan woke each morning to the same beige walls, the same FBI agents changing shifts outside, the same coffee that tasted like it had been filtered through cardboard. He'd given 17 depositions, answered the same questions 100 different ways, and signed more legal documents than he'd read in his entire life. Evelyn had it worse. Her depositions ran 8 hours some days, with prosecutors building cases against each board member individually. She'd lost weight, developed dark circles under her eyes that no amount of sleep could erase, and stopped bothering with the expensive business clothes that had once been her armor. Now she wore jeans and old sweaters, looking more like a grad student than a former CEO. But the worst part wasn't the depositions or the confinement. It was being separated from Chloe. Agent Torres had explained it carefully, apologetically, until the immediate threats were neutralized. Until they'd arrested everyone connected to the assassination attempts, Chloe needed to stay with Mrs. Chen under protective surveillance. Too dangerous to bring her to the safe house. Too risky to let Ryan visit. It's temporary, Torres kept saying, just until we're sure. Set? Os or sit. Temporary had stretched from days into weeks, and Ryan was starting to lose his mind. I need to see her, he told Torres for the 15th time, pacing the small living room while Evelyn sat at the kitchen table reviewing testimony transcripts. It's been 3 weeks. She's 7 years old. She thinks I abandoned her. She knows you didn't abandon her. Mrs. Chen's keeping her updated. We've arranged phone calls. Phone calls aren't the same, and you know it. Ryan's voice cracked slightly. She needs her father, not a voice on a phone telling her everything's fine when it clearly isn't. Torres sighed, setting down her coffee. Ryan, I understand, but the latest intel suggests there are still contractors out there looking to tie up loose ends. 3 of the people involved in the assassination plot are still unaccounted for. Until we find them, then let me go to her. Put me in protective custody with Chloe instead of here. I don't care about the depositions or the trials or any of it if it means I can't be with my daughter. You're a material witness in 14 separate federal cases. We can't just relocate you whenever. Then what the hell am I supposed to do? Ryan slammed his hand against the wall, immediately regretting it when pain shot through his still healing shoulder. Tell me how to fix this. Tell me how to be a father from inside a cage. Evelyn stood up from the table. Agent Torres, could you give us a minute? Torres looked between them, then nodded and stepped outside to join the guards. Sit down, Evelyn said quietly. I don't want to sit down. I want to see my kid. I know. Sit down anyway. Ryan sat, all the fight draining out of him at once. He put his head in his hands, and Evelyn moved to sit beside him on the couch. This is my fault, she said. All of it. You helped me, and now you're paying the price. Don't. Ryan's voice was muffled through his hands. Don't make this about guilt. We made choices. Both of us. I didn't think it would cost me this much time with Chloe. What if I talked to Torres? What if I offered to handle the depositions remotely, clear the safe house so they could bring Chloe here? Even just for a weekend, something. They won't go for it. Too risky, too complicated, too many moving parts. Ryan lifted his head, looking at her. You've got enough to deal with without trying to fix my problems, too. But your problems are my problems now, whether you like it or not. Evelyn's expression was fierce. You stood with me when no one else would. Let me stand with you. Before Ryan could respond, Torres came back inside, her phone pressed to her ear and her expression tight. She listened for a moment, then said, Copy that. Secure the perimeter and wait for backup. Lati. She hung up and looked at them. We've got movement on one of the missing contractors. Surveillance picked him up at a bus station about 40 miles from here. He's moving in this direction. Ryan stood. He's coming for us. We don't know that yet. Could be coincidence, could be... It's not coincidence. Evelyn was on her feet too. They know where we are. They've always known. They've just been waiting for the right moment. Torres's jaw tightened. We're moving you, both of you. Different location, higher security. We pack now. We leave in 10 minutes. The next hour was chaos. FBI agents swarmed the safe house, packing their minimal belongings, running security protocols, arranging transport to a new location they wouldn't reveal until they were already moving. Ryan grabbed the few things he actually cared about: photos of Chloe, the stuffed rabbit she'd left behind, his phone with 3 weeks of saved voicemails from his daughter telling him about her days. They were loaded into separate vehicles. Standard protocol, Torres explained, in case one was compromised. Ryan rode with 2 agents he'd never met, while Evelyn went in a different car with Torres. The convoy moved fast through back roads, avoiding highways, taking routes that changed every few minutes. "Where are we going?" Ryan asked the agent driving. "Secure facility upstate, more isolated, better defensive position. You'll be safe there." "That's what you said about the last place." The agent didn't respond. They drove for 2 hours, the landscape changing from urban sprawl to industrial zones to rural farmland. The safe house had been anonymous, but at least it was in a city. This new location was going to be in the middle of nowhere, which meant even more isolation, even more separation from Chloe. Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" "Go." His blood went cold. Chloe didn't have a phone. Mrs. Chen's number was saved in his contacts. This wasn't her. "Stop the car," Ryan said. "What?" "Stop the car right now." The agent hit the brakes, and the vehicle behind them nearly rear-ended them before swerving. Ryan held up his phone, showing the message. "Someone has access to my daughter, or they want me to think they do." His hands were shaking. "We need to call Mrs. Chen. We need to confirm Chloe's safe." The agent grabbed his radio. "This is Unit 3 to command. We have a potential security breach. Requesting immediate welfare check on the protected minor." "Static." Then Torres's voice. "Copy that. Stand by." They waited on the side of the road, Ryan's heart hammering against his ribs. Another text came through. "She misses you, such a sweet girl. Be a shame if something happened because you couldn't leave well enough alone." "They're threatening her," Ryan breathed. "They're threatening Chloe to get to me." "We don't know that yet," the agent started to say, but Ryan was already calling Mrs. Chen's number. It rang 4 times. 5, 6, then voicemail. "No, no, no, no." Ryan tried again. Same result. Torres's voice crackled over the radio. "Welfare check team reports no contact at the Chen residence. Front door is open. Signs of struggle. The girl is missing." The world stopped. Ryan heard the words but couldn't process them, couldn't make them fit into reality. Chloe was missing. Someone had taken his daughter. While he'd been sitting in a safe house giving depositions and reviewing testimony, someone had grabbed his 7-year-old girl. "We need to go back," he said, his voice barely functioning. "We need to find her right now." "Ryan, right now!" He grabbed the door handle, ready to bolt from the car if he had to. "My daughter is out there with people who want to hurt her, and you're telling me to stand by?" The agent in the passenger seat turned around. "Mr. Mercer, I know this is terrifying, but we need to follow protocol. FBI's already mobilized search teams. They're going to..." "Protocol?" Ryan laughed, and it came out broken and wild. "My daughter is gone, and you want to talk about protocol?" His phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo. Chloe, sitting in what looked like the back of a van, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, her eyes wide and scared. Across the bottom of the image, a message. "You have 2 hours to deliver Evelyn Sinclair to the location we send. Come alone. Bring anyone else, and the girl dies." Ryan showed the photo to the agents. The driver immediately radioed it to Torres while the other agent tried to trace the number. Ryan just stared at his daughter's face on the screen, memorizing every detail, looking for clues about where she might be. Torres's car pulled up alongside them, and she jumped out, moving to Ryan's window. "Let me see it." He held up the phone. Torres studied the image, her expression hardening. "This is a play," she said. "They know we can trace the photo metadata, track the location. They're trying to draw us out." "I don't care if it's a play. That's my daughter." "I know, but think. Ryan, if you give them Evelyn, they kill both of you and probably Chloe too. These aren't people who leave witnesses. So what do you suggest? I just wait here while they..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Evelyn appeared beside Torres, her face pale. "Let them have me." What? Torres and Ryan said simultaneously. It's me they want. It's always been me. Evelyn's voice was steady, decided. Let me go to the exchange. You track me, follow at a distance, and when they're focused on me, you extract Chloe. That's suicide, Choka, Torres said flatly. You walk into that meeting, you're dead. Maybe, but at least Chloe lives. Evelyn looked at Ryan. Your daughter is innocent in all this. She doesn't deserve to pay for my choices. And you don't deserve to die for them either, don't I? Evelyn's smile was bitter. This whole nightmare started because I couldn't see what was happening in my own company. Because I was so focused on power and profit that I didn't notice the corruption festering beneath me. If Chloe dies because I involved you in this... She shook her head. I can't live with that. Another text arrived with coordinates and a time, 4 p.m. at an abandoned quarry 30 miles west. Torres checked her watch. That gives us 90 minutes. Time to set up surveillance, position tactical teams, prepare for multiple scenarios. The tactical agent was already on his radio, coordinating with other units. We can have snipers in position, aerial support, the works. No, Ryan said. The message said, come alone. They'll be watching for exactly that kind of setup. Then what do you propose? Ryan looked at Evelyn, then at Torres, then at the phone showing his daughter's terrified face. I go, just me. I deliver Evelyn like they asked. Absolutely not, Torres said. It's the only way they'll actually make the exchange. They want Evelyn, fine. They get her, but they also get me, and I'm walking out of there with my daughter. Ryan, you're not trained for this. You're a mechanic, not an operative. You'll get yourself killed. Maybe, but at least I'll be doing something instead of sitting in a car while my kid is terrified and alone. Ryan met her eyes. You can't stop me. I'm not under arrest. I'm a witness, which means I can walk away anytime I want. Torres opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She knew he was right. Legally, he could leave whenever he chose. This is insane, she said finally. Yeah, well, I've gotten pretty good at insane lately. Ryan looked at Evelyn. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. There is no other way. Not in 90 minutes. Evelyn squared her shoulders. Besides, I'm tired of running, tired of hiding. If this is how it ends, at least it ends on my terms. Torres ran a hand through her hair, clearly calculating odds and options. Fine, but we do this smart. You go to the exchange, but you wear wires. We position teams far enough back that they won't be seen, but close enough to respond if things go wrong. And the second we have visual confirmation that Chloe is safe, we move in. What if they sweep for wires? Ryan asked. Then we use trackers instead, embedded in your clothes, your shoes, places they won't think to look. Torres was already pulling out her phone, coordinating with her tech team. We've got one shot at this. Let's not waste it. The next hour was a blur of preparation. FBI tech specialists arrived with tracking devices so small Ryan could barely see them. They stitched them into the seams of his jacket, embedded them in the heels of his boots, even put one in the battery compartment of his phone. Evelyn got the same treatment, plus a subcutaneous tracker injected under the skin of her shoulder. If they take your clothes, if they check your phone, we'll still be able to find you, the tech specialist explained. The subdermal tracker has a range of about 50 miles and a battery life of 72 hours. Comforting, Evelyn said dryly. Torres pulled Ryan aside while the specialists finished their work. I need you to understand something. The people you're about to meet, they're professionals. Military contractors, ex-special forces, the kind of people who've killed before and will kill again without hesitation. They're not going to play fair. They're not going to honor any agreement. The second they have what they want, they're going to eliminate all witnesses. I know. Do you? Because you're walking into this like it's a business transaction. It's not. It's an execution waiting to happen. Then you better make sure your teams are ready to stop it. Orion checked his watch. 3:30. They needed to leave soon to make the 4 o'clock deadline. Is there anything else? Torres hesitated, then pulled a small pistol from her ankle holster. Take this. I don't know how to use a gun. Then don't use it unless you absolutely have to. Safety's here, point and shoot. It's not going to make you Rambo, but it might buy you 2 seconds. Sometimes 2 seconds is all you need. Ryan took the weapon, feeling its weight in his palm. He'd never held a gun before, never wanted to. The fact that he was about to walk into a hostage exchange with one tucked in his waistband felt surreal. Evelyn emerged from the tech van, looking calm in a way that seemed almost unnatural. Ready? Ese... Isco. No, but let's go anyway. They climbed into an unmarked sedan, just the two of them, no visible FBI presence. Torres and her teams would follow at a distance, using the trackers to maintain surveillance without being detected. At least that was the theory. Ryan drove, following the coordinates to the abandoned quarry. The landscape grew increasingly desolate. Empty fields, dead factories, roads that looked like they hadn't seen traffic in years. Perfect place for an execution. "I'm sorry," Evelyn said quietly as they drove. "For all of it. For crashing into your life, for dragging you into this, for putting Chloe in danger. You deserved better than this." "Stop apologizing. We made choices, both of us. We live with them." Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "But if they hurt her, if they've done anything to my daughter, there's no amount of FBI backup that's going to stop me from making them pay." "I know." They drove the rest of the way in silence, each of them preparing for whatever came next. The quarry appeared around a bend, a massive excavation site, long abandoned, now filled with dark water and surrounded by rocky cliffs. A single access road led down to the water's edge, and there, parked near the water, was a black van. "That's them," Ryan said, his pulse spiking. "Remember the plan. We verify Chloe's safe, we make the exchange, Torres's teams move in. And if something goes wrong, then we improvise." Evelyn pulled something from her pocket, a small flash drive. "The evidence. Everything we didn't release publicly. If this goes bad, if they get me, make sure this gets to Torres. It's insurance." Ryan took the drive, tucked it into his boot alongside one of the trackers. Then he drove down the access road, the sedan bumping over potholes and broken pavement until they were 20 feet from the van. The van's side door slid open, and Carter stepped out. The same man who'd come to Ryan's house that first night, who'd chased them through the Paramount Tower, who'd nearly killed them on that 40th floor. He was smiling. "Right on time," Carter called out. "I appreciate punctuality." Ryan and Evelyn got out of the car slowly, hands visible. Ryan scanned the area, looking for Chloe, looking for other threats. He counted 3 other men near the van, plus whoever might be inside. Bad odds, even with FBI backup somewhere in the distance. "Where's my daughter?" Ryan demanded. "She's safe. For now." Carter nodded toward the van. "Want to see?" The van's rear doors opened, and there she was. Chloe, sitting on the floor of the cargo area, her hands zip-tied in front of her, her face streaked with tears, but alive. Conscious. Apparently unharmed. "Daddy!" she screamed when she saw him. Ryan started forward, but Carter raised a hand. "Not yet. First, Miss Sinclair comes with us. Then we verify she's who she claims to be. Then, if we're satisfied, we let the girl go." "That wasn't the deal," Evelyn said. "The deal was immediate exchange." "The deal is whatever I say it is." Carter's smile widened. "You're not really in a position to negotiate." Ryan felt the weight of Torres's pistol against his back, hidden beneath his jacket. 2 seconds, she'd said. Sometimes 2 seconds was all you needed. "Fine," Evelyn said, "but I want your word. You let them go, both of them, unharmed. You have my word." Carter gestured to his men. "Now come here, slowly." Evelyn walked towards them, each step measured and deliberate. When she was within arm's reach, one of Carter's men grabbed her roughly, patting her down for weapons or wires. He found her phone, tossed it to the ground, found her watch, removed it. Then he produced a handheld scanner and swept it over her body. The scanner beeped near her shoulder. "She's got a tracker," the man said. "Subcutaneous right here." Carter's expression darkened. "FBI?" "Probably." The man pulled out a knife. "Wait," Evelyn said. "You can disable it. You don't need to—" The man grabbed her arm and made a quick cut through her skin. Evelyn gasped in pain as he dug the tracker out and tossed it into the quarry water. Anyone else want to tell me what other surveillance you brought? Carter pulled out a gun, aiming it at Ryan. Because I'm getting the feeling we're not as alone as we should be. In the distance, barely audible, came the sound of helicopter rotors. Carter's head snapped up. Damn it! You brought the FBI? No, we... Ryan started, but Carter was already moving. Kill them all, and let's move. Everything happened at once. The men near the van raised their weapons. Ryan dove for cover behind the sedan, pulling Torres's pistol from his waistband. Evelyn lunged at Carter, clawing at his gun arm. And from the cliff above the quarry, sniper fire erupted. One of Carter's men went down immediately, a bullet through his chest. Another dove for cover. Carter shoved Evelyn away and fired wildly toward the cliffs. Ryan looked toward the van, toward Chloe still trapped inside, and made a decision. He ran. Bullets chewed up the ground around him, kicking up dirt and stone. He made it to the van's rear doors and yanked them open, diving inside just as a round punched through the metal inches from his head. "Daddy!" Chloe sobbed, throwing herself at him despite her bound hands. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." Ryan pulled a pocket knife from his jeans and cut through the zip ties, then scooped her up. "Close your eyes and hold on tight. Don't look at anything, okay?" She buried her face in his shoulder as Ryan scrambled out of the van. The firefight was full chaos now. FBI agents pouring down from the cliffs, Carter's men returning fire, Evelyn crawling toward the sedan with blood on her arm. Ryan ran toward the car, keeping Chloe's face pressed against his shoulder so she couldn't see the violence erupting around them. A bullet whined past his ear. Another hit the ground by his feet. Then he was at the sedan, throwing open the back door and pushing Chloe inside. "Stay down!" he yelled. "Don't move!" He turned to help Evelyn, but Carter was there first. The contractor had his gun pressed to Evelyn's head, using her as a shield as he backed toward a dirt bike Ryan hadn't noticed before. "Back off!" Buck Carter screamed at the FBI agents. "Back off, or I paint the rocks with her brain!" Torres appeared from behind an outcropping, her own weapon raised. "It's over, Carter. You're surrounded." "Let her go." "I let her go. I'm dead. We both know how this ends." "It ends with you in custody or in a body bag. Your choice." Carter laughed, wild and desperate. "You want her alive? Then you let me leave. I take the bike, I ride out of here, and once I'm clear, I'll tell you where to find her." "Not happening. Then she dies right now." Carter's finger tightened on the trigger. Ryan didn't think, didn't plan, just raised Torres's pistol and fired. The shot went wide. Ryan had never fired a gun before and his hands were shaking, but it was close enough to make Carter flinch. In that split second of distraction, Evelyn drove her elbow into his ribs and twisted away. The FBI snipers didn't miss. 3 shots, center mass, and Carter went down hard. Evelyn collapsed to her knees, gasping. Ryan ran to her, pulling her toward the sedan while FBI agents secured the scene. 2 of Carter's men were dead, 1 wounded and being cuffed, the 4th trying to run before agents tackled him. "Are you hit?" Ryan asked, checking Evelyn for wounds. "Just the arm. They got the tracker out." She looked at him, shock starting to set in. "You shot at him. You actually shot at him." "I missed." "You distracted him. That's what mattered." Evelyn started laughing, slightly hysterical. "We're alive. We're actually alive." Torres jogged over, holstering her weapon. "Everyone good here?" "Define good," Ryan said, but he was already moving back to the sedan, back to Chloe. She was exactly where he'd left her, curled up on the back seat with her hands over her ears. "Baby, it's okay. It's over. You're safe." Ryan climbed into the back seat and pulled her into his lap. "Nobody's going to hurt you ever again, I promise." Chloe clung to him, sobbing into his chest, her whole body shaking. Ryan held her and rocked her and whispered every reassuring thing he could think of while Torres coordinated the cleanup, and Evelyn sat on the hood of the sedan with a medic bandaging her arm. It took another hour before they were cleared to leave. The FBI needed statements, needed to process the scene, needed to catalog evidence and coordinate with the prosecutor's office. Ryan gave them the bare minimum, his attention focused entirely on Chloe, who hadn't let go of him since he pulled her from the van. Finally, Torres cleared them to go. We'll need full debriefs tomorrow, but for tonight, you're done. All of you. By Trotmut. Where do we go? Ryan asked. The safe house was compromised. His actual house was still a crime scene. He had nowhere. Hotel downtown, FBI's covering it. 2 adjoining rooms, security outside, room service on us. Torres managed a tired smile. You've earned it. They drove back in silence, Chloe asleep in Ryan's lap, Evelyn staring out the window at the darkening landscape. When they reached the hotel, a mid-range place that was blessedly normal after weeks of safe houses and federal facilities, Torres walked them to their rooms personally. Get some rest, she said. Tomorrow we start building cases against everyone involved. But tonight, just be okay. Ryan carried Chloe to one of the rooms and laid her on the bed without waking her. She looked so small, so fragile, her face still showing the tracks of dried tears. He sat beside her, watching her breathe, making sure she was really there, really safe. Evelyn appeared in the doorway. How is she? Asleep, probably going to have nightmares for months. Ryan rubbed his face. I'm going to have nightmares for months. That makes 3 of us. Evelyn moved to sit in the chair by the window. What happens now? Now? Now I figure out how to be a father again, how to give Chloe a normal life after all this, how to explain to a 7-year-old that sometimes bad things happen to good people and there's no good reason for it. You'll figure it out. You're good at that, figuring things out. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, I feel like I've been improvising badly for 3 weeks straight. Ryan looked at her. What about you? What happens to Evelyn Sinclair now that Sinclair Global is gone? I don't know. Start over, I guess. Build something new, something better. She paused. You never answered my question from before, about being part of it. You're seriously still thinking about business ventures after we almost died at a quarry? I'm thinking about the future, about what comes after all the trials and depositions, about whether that future includes you or if you want nothing to do with me once this is over. Ryan looked at his daughter sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks, then at Evelyn sitting in the cheap hotel chair with a bandage on her arm and exhaustion in her eyes. 2 people who'd survived something they shouldn't have, who'd found each other in the worst possible circumstances. Ask me again in 6 months, he said finally, when the dust settles, when Chloe's back in school and I've figured out what normal looks like again. Ask me then if I want to build something with you. And what will your answer be? I don't know yet, but I'm open to finding out. Evelyn smiled, genuine this time, not bitter or broken. I can work with that. She stood to leave, but Ryan stopped her. Hey, thank you for trying to trade yourself for Chloe, for being willing to die so she could live. That meant something. She's your daughter. Of course I would have. Evelyn looked at Chloe sleeping. She deserves a childhood, a real one, with stability and safety and a father who loves her. Whatever it takes to give her that, I'm in. She left, closing the door quietly behind her. Ryan sat with Chloe until sunrise, watching her sleep, cataloging every breath, every small movement. The terror of the last 24 hours was starting to fade, replaced by exhaustion and relief and a bone-deep gratitude that they'd survived. Tomorrow would bring more depositions, more testimony, more grinding through the legal machinery that would hopefully put away everyone who'd tried to kill them. But tonight, his daughter was safe. The evidence was secured. The truth was out there, undeniable and spreading. For the first time in weeks, Ryan let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Chloe stirred around 6 a.m., blinking awake slowly. When she saw Ryan sitting beside her, she immediately burst into tears again. You came for me, she sobbed. You really came. Of course I came. I'll always come for you. Always. Ryan pulled her close. You're my whole world, kiddo. Nothing is ever going to change that. I was so scared. They said you weren't coming. They said you didn't want me anymore. They lied. About everything. I never stopped wanting you, never stopped trying to get to you. Ryan kissed the top of her head. And now we're together. And we're going to stay together. No more separations, no more safe houses. Just you and me figuring out what comes next. And Evelyn? Ryan paused. What about her? Is she coming with us? when we figure out what comes next. Do you want her to? Chloe thought about it seriously. I think so. She was nice to me, and she makes you smile sometimes. You don't smile a lot anymore. Out of the mouths of children came the truths adults spent years avoiding. Ryan didn't smile a lot anymore. Hadn't smiled much since Sarah left, since life became about survival instead of living. But Evelyn did make him smile. Made him remember that he used to be someone who fought for things, who stood up when it mattered, who believed in something beyond just getting through another day. Maybe she will come with us, Ryan said. We'll see. Okay. Chloe yawned, still exhausted despite hours of sleep. Can we get pancakes? Room service pancakes coming right up. They spent the morning in pajamas eating mediocre hotel pancakes and watching cartoons like the world outside didn't exist. Evelyn joined them around 10, and the three of them sat together on the hotel bed, pretending that this was normal, that this was family, that everything hadn't almost fallen apart. And maybe, Ryan thought as Chloe laughed at something on the screen, maybe it could be. Maybe after everything they'd survived, after all the chaos and violence and fear, they'd earned the right to pretend, to build something new from the wreckage. It wouldn't be easy. There would be trials and testimony, therapy for Chloe's trauma, rebuilding lives from nothing. But they'd face it together. The mechanic, the billionaire, and the 7-year-old girl who'd somehow become the center of both their worlds. The future was uncertain, messy, complicated. But for the first time in longer than Ryan could remember, it was also possible. And possible, he was starting to realize, was enough. 1 year later, Ryan stood in front of a building that didn't exist the last time he'd driven down this street. The sign above the door read Mercer Restoration and Company in simple black letters. Nothing fancy, nothing that screamed money or power, just honest work advertised honestly. Through the large front windows, he could see the shop floor, 4 hydraulic lifts, tool chests organized with a precision that would have made his old self laugh, and 2 classic cars in various states of resurrection. His garage. His business. Built from insurance money, a small business loan he'd actually qualified for, and a seed investment from someone who believed in second chances. You're staring at it like it might disappear, Evelyn said, walking up beside him with 2 coffee cups from the shop across the street. She handed him one. Black, no sugar, the way he'd learned to drink it during those weeks in the safe house. Just making sure it's real, Ryan admitted. A year ago, I was hiding in an abandoned building, wondering if I'd live to see morning. Now I've got a legitimate business with actual employees and health insurance. 2 employees, Evelyn corrected. Marcus starts Monday, remember? Right, 2 employees. Ryan sipped his coffee, still adjusting to the reality of being someone who hired people instead of begging for hours. You sure the numbers work? I don't want to overextend and end up... The numbers work. I've run them 6 different ways. You're profitable, you're growing, and you're actually paying yourself a living wage for the first time in your adult life. Evelyn bumped his shoulder with hers. Trust the process, says the woman who rebuilt her entire company from scratch in 11 months. Us. Sinclair Community Development is not a company. It's a nonprofit focused on affordable housing and worker-owned cooperatives. Completely different model. But Evelyn was smiling as she said it. The kind of smile that meant she was proud of what she'd built, even if she wouldn't admit it directly. They stood together in the morning cold, watching the sun hit the garage windows, neither of them in any hurry to move. A year ago, they'd been strangers thrown together by violence and desperation. Now they were... what exactly? Partners, definitely. Business associates, technically. Evelyn had provided the capital for the garage in exchange for a minority stake, though she'd insisted Ryan maintain controlling interest. Friends? Certainly. They had coffee together most mornings, reviewed financials every week, texted each other random thoughts at odd hours. But there was something else there too. Something neither of them had named yet, though Chloe kept asking when Evelyn was going to officially move in instead of just sleeping over 3 nights a week. How's Chloe doing with the new school? Evelyn asked, as if reading his thoughts. Better. Her teacher says she's opening up more, participating in class. The nightmares are down to maybe once a week now, instead of every night. Ryan paused. The therapist thinks she's processing the trauma in healthy ways, whatever that means. It means she's resilient, like her father. I'm not resilient. I'm just stubborn and too dumb to quit. That's what resilient means. Evelyn finished her coffee. tossed the cup in a nearby recycling bin. Speaking of Chloe, you remember we're picking her up early today? School assembly at 2. Right, the art show thing. Ryan checked his watch. 8:30 in the morning, which gave them 5.5 hours to get actual work done before parental duties called. You don't have to come to every school event, you know. I'm sure you've got nonprofit empire business to handle. The nonprofit empire can wait. I want to see what she painted. That was the thing about Evelyn that still surprised Ryan sometimes. For all her wealth and power and connections, she showed up. To school assemblies and parent-teacher conferences and random Tuesday afternoon soccer practices. She'd become part of Chloe's life not by force or obligation, but by simply being present when it mattered. They walked into the garage together, and Ryan immediately felt that familiar sense of rightness that came from being in a space built for purpose. This wasn't just a job. It was craft. Legacy. The kind of work that meant something beyond a paycheck. His 2 current employees were already there. Jackson, a kid fresh out of technical school who was brilliant with electrical systems, and Maria, a woman in her 50s who'd spent 30 years at a dealership before they downsized her position. Both of them looked up when Ryan entered, and both of them smiled like they were actually happy to see him. "Morning, boss," Jackson called out from under a 1967 Mustang. "Got the alternator replaced on this one. Should be ready for test drive by noon." "Good work. What about the Camaro?" "Waiting on parts. Should be here tomorrow." Maria wiped grease from her hands, consulting her clipboard. "We've also got 3 new estimates to review, and someone called about restoring a 72 Bronco." "A Bronco?" Ryan's interest perked up. He'd always wanted to work on one of those. "What condition?" "Rough. Needs full engine rebuild, new transmission, bodywork. Probably 6 months of work." "Geeks. Tell them we're interested. Get photos and we'll put together a quote." This was the part of business ownership Ryan had never anticipated loving. The planning, the problem solving, the satisfaction of taking something broken and making it whole again. Turns out the skills he'd learned keeping his own life together with duct tape and determination translated pretty well to running a shop. Evelyn disappeared into the small office at the back, technically Ryan's office, but she'd basically claimed half the desk for her own work. Through the window, he could see her on the phone, probably coordinating with her team at the nonprofit. She moved between 2 worlds seamlessly. His blue-collar garage in the morning, high-level development meetings in the afternoon, somehow making both feel equally important. The morning passed in the rhythm of work. Diagnostics run, parts ordered, problems solved. Around 11:30, Agent Torres showed up unannounced, which immediately set Ryan's nerves on edge. They'd stayed in touch since the trials ended, but she didn't usually just drop by without calling first. "Everything okay?" Ryan asked, meeting her at the garage entrance. "Relax. This isn't official business." Torres pulled an envelope from her jacket. "Just wanted to deliver this in person." Ryan took the envelope, opened it. Inside was a check made out to him for $75,000, along with a letter from the Department of Justice. "What is this?" "Victim Compensation Fund. The government seized assets from the convicted board members and established a fund for people harmed by the conspiracy. You qualified." Torres smiled slightly. "Figured after everything you went through, you'd earned it." Ryan stared at the check, his brain struggling to process that many zeros attached to his name. $75,000. More than he'd made in the last 3 years combined. Enough to expand the garage, hire another employee, finally fix the truck that had been running on hope and spite. "I don't know what to say. Thank you usually works." Torres glanced around the garage, taking in the cars and the equipment and the clean, organized workspace. "You've done well for yourself. I'm impressed." "Yeah, well, turns out almost dying gives you perspective on what actually matters." "Speaking of which, how's the other survivor?" Torres nodded toward the office where Evelyn was still on the phone. "She's good. Building something that actually helps people instead of extracting value from them. Seems happier than I ever saw her during the trials. And you two are..." Ryan knew what she was asking. "We're figuring it out, taking it slow, making sure Chloe's okay with everything before we make any big decisions." "She?" "Smart. Though from what I saw at the trials, you're good for each other. She makes you think bigger. You keep her grounded." Torres checked her watch. I should go. Just wanted to see how you were doing. Make sure you were actually okay, and not just telling me you were okay. I'm actually okay, Ryan said, and realized it was true. For the first time in maybe forever, I'm actually okay. Torres left, and Ryan stood holding the check, still not quite believing it was real. Evelyn emerged from the office a few minutes later and immediately noticed his expression. What happened? He showed her the check. She looked at it, then at him, then started laughing. What's funny? Nothing. It's just you spend your whole life scraping by, and then the universe decides to hand you $75,000 all at once. The timing is absurd. Should I turn it down? Is there some tax thing I'm not thinking about? You should deposit it and use it to expand the business you've built. Evelyn took the check, examined it more closely. This is legitimate compensation for legitimate harm. Take it. Ryan did. That afternoon, after they'd picked up Chloe from school and sat through an assembly where she'd proudly displayed a painting of their family that included Ryan, Evelyn, and her stuffed rabbit, Ryan opened a business expansion account and deposited the check. Then he took Chloe and Evelyn to dinner at an actual restaurant instead of the usual rotation of cheap takeout. Nothing fancy, just a local diner with good burgers and better pie. But it felt like a celebration anyway. So I was thinking, Ryan said halfway through the meal, watching Chloe destroy a chocolate milkshake. Maybe it's time we found a bigger place. Somewhere with a yard. Room for Chloe to run around. Our place is fine, Chloe said through a mouthful of whipped cream. Our place has one bathroom and walls so thin I can hear the neighbors arguing about their cat. We can do better. Evelyn was quiet, pushing fries around her plate. Our place? Ryan realized what he'd said. Not my place. Our place. Like it belonged to all three of them instead of just him and Chloe. Yeah, he said, meeting her eyes. Our place. If you want it to be. I'm already there half the week anyway. So make it all week. Move in officially. Help us find somewhere that actually has closet space and maybe a kitchen where two people can stand at the same time. Chloe perked up immediately. Does this mean Evelyn's staying forever? Guamt. Nothing's forever, kiddo, Ryan said carefully. But yeah, for as long as she wants to. Evelyn reached across the table, took his hand. I want to. That night, after Chloe was asleep and they were sitting together on the couch, in the apartment that had somehow become theirs, Evelyn asked the question Ryan had been avoiding. What are we doing here, Ryan? Really? What do you mean? I mean, we're living together, raising your daughter together, building businesses together. But we've never actually talked about what this is, what we are to each other. Ryan thought about it. Thought about how Evelyn had been willing to die for his daughter. How she showed up to every school event and knew Chloe's favorite snacks and helped with homework without being asked. How she'd invested in his garage not because it was profitable, but because she believed in him. How she made him laugh and challenged him and made him want to be better than he was. I think, he said slowly, we're two people who found each other in the worst possible circumstances and somehow made something good out of it. I think we're partners, family, whatever label you want to put on it. And is that enough for you? Partnership and family? Or do you want something more? What do you want? Evelyn was quiet for a long time. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to help raise Chloe into a person who knows she's loved and safe. I want to build things together, businesses and homes and a life that matters. I want... She paused, searching for words. I want whatever this is to be real. Not just two people clinging to each other because we survived something terrible, but two people choosing to build something because we actually want to. Then that's what we'll do. Ryan pulled her closer. We'll find a house with a yard. We'll expand the garage. We'll make this official in whatever way feels right. And we'll do it because we want to, not because we have to. You make it sound simple. It is simple, complicated, but simple. We just keep showing up for each other, keep choosing each other, keep building something worth protecting. They sat together in comfortable silence, both of them processing what they'd just committed to. Outside, The city hummed with its usual chaos, sirens and traffic, and the endless noise of people living their lives. But inside this small apartment, there was peace. The trials had concluded 6 months ago with convictions across the board. Whitfield and 4 other board members were serving federal sentences ranging from 15 to 30 years. 3 judges had been disbarred. A dozen police officers had lost their badges. The corruption network had been dismantled piece by piece, its secrets exposed to daylight and public outrage. Sinclair Global Holdings had been liquidated, its assets sold off to pay fines and restitution. Thousands of employees had lost their jobs, just as Evelyn had predicted. But she'd worked with labor organizations to place as many as possible in new positions, and the Worker Compensation Fund had softened the blow for most. The media had eventually moved on to newer scandals, but the Sinclair case had changed things. Triggered reforms in corporate oversight, strengthened whistleblower protections, led to a dozen copycat investigations into other companies. The ripple effects were still spreading, and Ryan and Evelyn were still here, still standing, still choosing to build instead of burn. 3 months later, they found a house. It wasn't much. A small ranch-style place on the edge of town, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom that actually worked, a yard big enough for Chloe to run around in. The roof needed replacing, and the kitchen was stuck in 1987, but it had good bones and potential. Most importantly, it felt like home. They moved in on a Saturday with help from Jackson and Maria and a handful of Evelyn's nonprofit colleagues. By Sunday, half their stuff was still in boxes, but Chloe's room was set up perfectly. Lavender walls she'd picked herself, bookshelves Ryan had built, a new bed that didn't creak when she climbed into it. That night, after Chloe had fallen asleep in her new room, Ryan and Evelyn stood in their new kitchen drinking beer from bottles because they couldn't find the glasses. "We did it," Evelyn said, looking around at the peeling wallpaper and ancient appliances. "We bought a house. Together. We bought a disaster that will consume all our money and free time for the next decade," Ryan corrected. "But yeah, we did it. Any regrets? Just ask me again when we're halfway through the roof replacement." But Ryan was smiling. "No regrets. This is good. This is right. Even though I'm a former billionaire who doesn't know how to use a lawnmower, I'll teach you. You taught me how to read financial statements. Fair trade." They clinked bottles, sealing the deal. Over the next 6 months, they settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Ryan's garage continued to grow. They hired Marcus as promised, then added another technician when the workload became overwhelming. Evelyn's nonprofit expanded into 3 cities, providing affordable housing and supporting worker cooperatives that gave people ownership of their own labor. Chloe thrived. The nightmares faded to nothing. Her grades improved. She made friends at her new school, joined the soccer team, brought home art projects that gradually stopped featuring trauma imagery and started showing normal 8-year-old interests like unicorns and dinosaurs. And somewhere in the routine of breakfast and homework and work and dinner and bedtime stories, Ryan realized he was happy. Not the desperate, fragile happiness of someone waiting for disaster, just regular, sustainable, boring happiness. The kind that lasted. One evening in late spring, almost 18 months after that storm-torn night when Evelyn had crashed into his life, Ryan took her back to the place where it all started. The road where her SUV had gone into the ditch was the same, still empty, still forgotten, still the kind of place where no one would notice a car crash in the middle of the night. But the ditch had been filled in, and new pavement covered the skid marks. Ryan pulled his truck, the same beat-to-hell F-150, now restored and running better than it had in years, to the side of the road and killed the engine. "Why are we here?" Evelyn asked. "Because I needed to remember." Ryan got out of the truck, and she followed. They stood on the shoulder where he'd first seen her bleeding and terrified, where he'd made the choice that changed everything. Remember what? "That 18 months ago, you crashed into my life when I'd given up on anything ever changing. I was just surviving, just getting through days. I'd forgotten what it felt like to actually fight for something, to believe in something, to be the kind of person who stands up when it matters. You were already that person. You just needed a reason to remember." "Maybe, but you gave me that reason." Ryan turned to face her. "You and Chloe both. You reminded me that life is more than just surviving until you die. That sometimes the scary choice is the right choice. that the things worth protecting are worth risking everything for. Evelyn was quiet, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read.
I've been thinking about what you said, Ryan continued, about wanting this to be real, about choosing each other because we want to, not because we have to. And I realized I've been choosing you every day for 18 months. I chose you when I hid you in my daughter's closet. I chose you when I lied to armed men. I chose you when I walked into that quarry knowing I might not walk out. And I keep choosing you every morning when I wake up next to you and every night when I come home to you. Ryan, let me finish. He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Evelyn's eyes went wide. This isn't some fairy tale proposal.
I'm not going to tell you that you complete me or that I can't live without you. I can live without you. I did it for 32 years, but I don't want to. I want to build this life with you. I want to raise Chloe with you. I want to fix up our disaster house and expand the garage and support your nonprofit and argue about whose turn it is to do dishes. I want all of it. The boring parts and the hard parts and the parts where we screw up and have to figure out how to fix it. He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring. Nothing fancy, no massive diamond, just a silver band with small stones that caught the fading sunlight. Evelyn Sinclair, will you marry me? She stared at the ring, then at him. And for a terrifying moment, Ryan thought he'd misread everything. Thought maybe she'd wanted partnership, but not marriage. Wanted family, but not forever. Then she started laughing. What's funny? Nothing. Everything. The fact that you're proposing on the side of the road where we met. The fact that I'm standing here crying like an idiot when I spent 40 years being a ruthless businesswoman who didn't cry at anything. She wiped her eyes, still laughing. Yes, obviously yes. Did you really think I'd say anything else? Ryan slipped the ring on her finger, and they stood there on the empty road as the sun set behind them. Two people who'd found each other in chaos and built something solid from the wreckage. We should tell Chloe, Evelyn said, admiring the ring. She's going to lose her mind. She's known I was planning this for 2 months. She helped me pick the ring. Of course she did. Evelyn kissed him, soft and certain. When? When what? When do you want to do this? Get married? Ryan thought about it. Whenever feels right. No rush. We're already living like we're married anyway. I was thinking maybe fall. Small ceremony, just people we actually care about. Nothing elaborate. Sounds perfect. They drove back to their disaster house with its peeling wallpaper and ancient appliances where Chloe was waiting with Mrs. Chen, who'd agreed to babysit for the evening. The moment they walked in, Chloe saw the ring and screamed loud enough to wake the entire neighborhood. You said yes! I knew you'd say yes! She threw herself at Evelyn, who caught her with the ease of someone who'd learned to be a mother through practice rather than biology. How could I say no? Evelyn asked, holding Chloe tight. You two are my family. Mrs. Chen smiled from her spot on the couch. Congratulations, both of you. You've built something good here. We're trying, Ryan said. You're succeeding. The old woman gathered her things, preparing to leave. Life is about the people you choose to stand with when everything falls apart. You two chose each other. That's worth more than all the money in the world. After she left, the three of them, Ryan, Evelyn, and Chloe, sat together on the floor of their living room surrounded by furniture they'd assembled, themselves and walls they'd painted together, and a life they were building one imperfect day at a time. So I get to be in the wedding? Chloe asked, bouncing with excitement. You get to be the most important person in the wedding, Evelyn promised. The whole thing only happens if you approve. Then I approve. Can I wear a fancy dress? The fanciest dress we can find. Can I bring my stuffed rabbit? Absolutely. What? Chloe beamed, and Ryan felt something settle in his chest that had been unsettled for longer than he could remember. This was it. This was the life he'd always wanted without knowing he wanted it. Not wealth or power or success measured by bank accounts. Just people who loved each other choosing to build something together. The wedding happened on a Saturday in October, in the backyard of their disaster house that was slowly becoming less of a disaster. 40 people attended, employees from the garage, colleagues from the nonprofit, Agent Torres and her wife, Mrs. Chen, a handful of childhood friends Ryan had reconnected with, and Chloe's entire soccer team because she'd insisted. Nothing went perfectly. The caterer arrived late, it rained during the ceremony, and Chloe's fancy dress got mud on it within the first 10 minutes. But nobody cared.
They were too busy celebrating something that actually mattered. Ryan and Evelyn exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Messy.
Honest promises about showing up and staying put and choosing each other even when it got hard. Nothing poetic or rehearsed, just truth. And when they kissed, Chloe cheered loudest of all, standing between them in her muddy dress, holding her stuffed rabbit, beaming like the sun. The reception lasted until midnight, full of cheap champagne and dancing in the rain and stories about everything they'd survived to get here. Torres gave a speech about the stupidest, bravest witnesses she'd ever worked with. Maria and Jackson presented a gift, a custom metal sign for the garage that read Mercer and Sinclair Restoration, because even though Evelyn didn't work there, they decided her name belonged on the business too. We're partners, Ryan had explained when they made the decision, in everything. As the night wound down and guests started leaving, Ryan found himself standing alone in the yard, watching the stars barely visible through the city's light pollution. Evelyn appeared beside him, still in her wedding dress, her hair coming loose from the pins that had held it up. "Happy?" she asked. "Yeah. You?" Terrified mostly. Marriage is a bigger commitment than surviving corporate conspiracies. "We'll figure it out. We always do. What if we screw it up? What if 10 years from now we're divorced and bitter and you regret all of this? Then we'll have had 10 good years building something worth trying for. That's more than most people get." Ryan pulled her close. "Stop waiting for disaster. We already survived the worst. Everything from here is just living." Evelyn leaned into him and they stood together under the stars, two people who'd learned the hard way that the things worth having are worth fighting for. That family isn't just blood, it's choice. That the bravest thing you can do is stand with someone when the world tells you to run. Inside the house, through the kitchen window, they could see Chloe asleep on the couch, still clutching her stuffed rabbit, exhausted from the best day of her young life. She was 9 now, growing fast, already showing signs of the person she'd become, strong and resilient and unafraid. "We did good," Evelyn said quietly. "With her, with this, with all of it." "We did okay," Ryan agreed. "Not perfect, but okay. Okay is enough." And it was. After everything they'd survived, after all the violence and fear and near misses, okay was more than enough. It was everything. Because here's what Ryan had learned in the 18 months since a bleeding billionaire crashed into his life. Happiness isn't about having everything figured out. It's not about perfect choices or ideal circumstances or waiting until you're ready. It's about finding people worth protecting and protecting them. It's about building things that matter even when they're hard. It's about showing up every day and choosing love over fear, courage over comfort, connection over safety. The storm that nearly destroyed him had actually saved him, reminded him he was more than just a guy surviving until he died. He was a father, a husband, a builder of things, a protector of people. He was someone who stood up when it mattered and stayed standing even when everything tried to knock him down. And Evelyn, the woman who'd had everything and lost it all, had found something worth more than billions. She'd found purpose, family, a life measured not in quarterly reports but in school assemblies and Sunday morning pancakes, and the small, quiet moments when you realize you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The house behind them was still a disaster. The roof still needed replacing, the kitchen was still stuck in 1987, and they'd recently discovered the basement flooded when it rained, but it was theirs. Built with their money, filled with their choices, home to their family. Ryan and Evelyn went inside eventually, exhausted and happy and ready for whatever came next. They checked on Chloe one more time, locked the doors, turned off the lights, and went to bed in their disaster house that was slowly, imperfectly, becoming exactly what it needed to be. And somewhere in the distance, in a city full of people surviving their own storms, someone else was making the choice to stand instead of run, to help instead of hide, to be brave even when it cost everything. Because that's what people do when they remember who they are. They stand up, they fight back, they protect the things that matter, and sometimes, if they're very lucky, they find each other in the chaos and build something that lasts. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And real, Ryan had learned, was worth everything.